Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us once again for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission, of course, if you don't already know, is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers all around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information, of course, for passionate authors who are looking to write their next bestseller. I am Darren Kazanko, dystopian science fiction and horror author, avid reader, and one of your co-hosts and co-founders of the Australian Book Lovers, coming to you today from Ghana country.
And I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, sci-fi, memoir and picture book writer, voracious reader, and the other co-founder and host, coming to you today from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country.
And here we are, Veronica, for episode number 85.
Yeah, look, it took me a minute to kind of think about 85. We're only 15 from the big C, the
Champagne
big 100,
pop, yes.
Indeed. So really fabulous guest that we have today. We've got Pauline Yates in our interview. So many bits and pieces happening. It's coming up to NAIDOC week here in Australia. We've got super special episodes, which we may not talk about till next time because we're
surprises.
Can't
give away surprises.
Can't give away surprises like spoilers in a book. So lots to do. Let's go.
Well, let's go into how is it that you got to talk all horror? I'm very jealous.
I know. And as you'll hear, we thought, Darren, wish he was here. Na, which was extremely unprofessional of me. But yeah, it was fantastic talking to Pauline.
Yeah, very lucky opportunity. But number 85. So would you like to know a little bit about the number before we kick off?
Tell me about the number because I could, of course, tell you about the bingo number first. And this is kind of, I guess, what I feel. So 85 is staying alive. Staying alive. Which some of you may recognise my fabulous rendition of, the Bee Gees song Staying Alive. But it's also with winter in Melbourne. It's been freezing. My joints have been aching. It's been cold and dark. And staying alive is kind of a little bit just what I feel like at the moment.
No, you got to do the Wim Hof thing. You got to go out there in your summer gear and embrace the cold. Let your body go, yeah. And
not a chance.
Apparently that fixes it, but I don't know.
Well, we did go for a delightful walk up the back of Mount Macedon up to Sanatorium Lake there, Gabor, in the traditional, as it's traditionally known, and it was -6, so that was enough for me.
That's a definite
that was
Antarctic
fresh. My lungs knew they were alive.
Yeah, wow. Oh dear.
Yeah. Okay, in the meantime, 1985.
Yeah, staying alive, huh? Well, I think I may have mentioned it on the podcast a long time ago. I've got an original Staying Alive VHS, and I watched it 2 years ago for the very first time, believe it or not, because I always thought it was a dancing disco movie.
Oh, right.
And of course, I was a little bit bomb-shocked in a good way of what a hard-hitting drama it really is. So there we go.
Yeah.
If you think it's a disco dancing movie, you are wrong.
Yeah,
but I suppose I'm a bit late to the party for that one. Anyway, the number 85, I like this one. Apparently, the 85, or the power of 85, suggests that old restraints and current constraints, I guess, will be shed in order to make way for auspicious new opportunities, advancements, and or promotions in one's life. It is apparently, the number 85, a message that the important changes ahead of us, or those changes might be happening right now, and the relevant choices you will make will bring long-term benefits to one's life. So, really a process of change, maybe winter where the caterpillar coming into the butterfly. Maybe.
Perhaps we've got a little bit longer to go, but okay, I'll give you that.
Well, what about a snapshot of Australia in 1985?
Let's hear it.
Well, 84 was a cracker year, as we might have heard in podcast episode number 84. 1985 is a little bit of a strange one. I wouldn't say it's got anything that jumps out as stupendously awesome, but it does have a few little kernels of awe in there. But we'll start with on the 31st of March in 1985. In excess of 300,000 people throughout Australia marched in the Palm Sunday anti-nuclear rallies. That's a huge march. I don't think has that been eclipsed. I should have had a look, but nonetheless, it was definitely a case of the people of Australia letting their thoughts be known about nuclear issues. Now, on the 20th of May, Queensland Police raided the Green Slopes Fertility Clinic in Brisbane and seized the patient files of 20,000 women. Now, the search warrant was later ruled invalid and the files returned. I couldn't find really what was the trigger for that, but it's a bit of a scary thing that even back then, these raids were happening. Imagine the digital style raids that are happening now that you never even know about. But I digress. Now, the vehicular ferry Empress of Australia made its very last trip between the mainland and Tasmania on the 2nd of June 1985. So, possibly a sad day for lovers of that vessel. Now, in your neck of the woods, Veronica, Victoria, as you're probably aware, in 1985 celebrated its 150th anniversary.
Indeed.
Did you do anything special?
I was 25. I was doing my midwifery, so I was probably, delivering babies or helping mothers and fathers. So, yeah.
Well, no balloons in the hospital?
And of course, I did get married that year.
Well, that's a good way to celebrate it.
So, yes. So, in May of 1985, we did get married.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, speaking of two fantastic forces of nature coming together, in a corporate way, on the 6th of August, the merging of two retail giant operators came together, creating Coles Myer Limited. So there's a bit of a staple. And, in August, the Royal Commission on the Use and Effects of Chemical Agents on Australian personnel in Vietnam found, get this, that there were no links between the chemical Agent Orange and the health problems of the Vietnam War veterans.
Now, that's not right.
Yeah, that was pretty odd. And of course, I had a quick look just to see the effects of Agent Orange, and I could have spent days looking at all those effects and the cancers that it triggered. So interesting, already back in 85, you could lose faith in the justice system. Yeah. So anyway, I'm not going to go into that. Here's one we all love. On the 20th of September in 1985, capital gains tax was introduced. Yay! That was...
That's right, yeah.
But now here's one that I found really interesting, and I think, with the current atmosphere today with regards to, our cost of living inflation, all these things, and especially with electricity prices, Australia being the highest in the world, and I think here in South Australia we've got the highest in the world. Nonetheless, I found really interesting and quite prophetic. On the 21st of September, at a Light on the Hill dinner in Bathurst, Prime Minister Bob Hawke described privatisation as, quote, the height of irrationality and a recipe for disaster. Well, there we go. It certainly
has been, I wish he got into Jeff Kennett's ear down here in Victoria. Anyway.
Well, that goes the same here, and I suspect for quite a few states. Yeah. But there we go. A moment of absolute clarity, and a gentleman back then who could see the writing on the wall, and we ignored it. We turned the lights out, so to speak. Okay, so, but on the 12th of October, Canon Arthur Malcolm became the first Aboriginal bishop in Australia. There we go, a little bit of a milestone. And in October, now I hope I pronounced this correctly, the Mudurjulu Aboriginal community was given freehold title to Ayers Rock and the Uluru National Park. So definitely a momentous point in history there.
Yeah.
And running through, we've got in December, Federal Parliament passed the Australian Act, which actually cut the nation's last legal and constitutional ties with Britain. So that's a pretty big one for 85.
Yes, yeah.
Now, that same Royal Commission in December, the one who said there was no, effects from Agent Orange, also commissioned British atomic tests in Australia, and they severely criticised Britain for violating safety standards and recommended that Britain clean up contaminated areas and pay compensation. I'm not sure if that ever followed through, but yes, that's just in our backyard here in South Australia too. Interesting. Now, as far as the Miles Franklin Award, 1985, it was Christopher Koch's novel The Double Man. And when it comes to cinema, here's a couple of cool titles that came out of 85, just to bring a nice end to this one. Burke and Wills came out. I remember that one very fondly. The Coca-Cola Kid. Yeah, but here's the one we all know, and apologies if accuse any bad or good 80s music or song in your head. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome was released.
Yeah, pretty bad.
All right, well, I'll change the internal song because this one's definitely going to get a song in your head. Guess what premiered on the 7 Network on the 18th of March in 1985?
God, probably something hideous like Home and Away, was it?
Oh, you're so close, Veronica. Neighbours.
Oh, my gosh.
Dun, dun, dun. Sorry, everyone, putting that song in your head, but there we go. It began then in 1985. So there we go. Episode 85, little snapshot of Australia in 1985. Quite some interesting moments in time there. And but I am more interested now in some of the cool words that you always have for us each episode.
Yes. So I'm absolutely delighted. I'm holding in my hand, as always, the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows by the delightful John Koenig, and so many that you think which ones fit best for this episode. But how about this one? Because I know that you've got a little bit of a drive to check out some AI, and there's a lot of AI happening. So. Adomania is the sense that the future is arriving ahead of schedule, that all those years with fanciful names are bursting from their hypothetical cages into the arena of the present, furiously bucking your grip while you slip around in your saddle, with one hand reaching for the reins and the other waving up high like a school kid who finally knows the answer to the question. It's from the Italian adomani, which is until tomorrow, and mania, pronounced adomania.
I do like that word.
You like that?
Yeah. I definitely put that in the description of myself. I think of it as atom, like molecule, and then there we go, the cross between spiritual and scientific. But yeah, it does feel, it finally does feel as though the future is arriving, because it hasn't felt like that, for me anyway. Things have improved, but nothing new's come on the scene, but now there has.
There you go. All right, let me give you this one, because I know you're a great movie buff and you do like still going to see the movies. So this is called Realtoscuro, which is Rialtoscuro. And it's the disorientation of stepping outside a movie theatre into unexpected darkness, a twinge of jet lag after letting your mind escape to some other world for a while, only to be thrown abruptly back into reality. And again, this is from Italian Rialto, which is a theatre district, and Oscuro, which is dark and obscure, compared to Chiaroscuro, which describes a quality of visual art that emphasises the contrast between deep shade and bright light. So yes, Rialtoscuro.
Definitely another one that I think I can use in my vernacular to describe it.
Yeah,
because off to the cinema tonight, so
Oh, there you go. Well, when you step out, you can say to the lads, "Oh, I'm feeling a little Rialtoscuro," and they can look at you and go, "What?"
Not only that, last night a good friend and I we met in VR to play a very, very scary game where you have to explore houses, and you have to use all this different equipment to try and capture ghosts.
Yeah.
And it is so immersive because it's like pretty state-of-the-art VR stuff. So you feel like you're in an actual house. You've got torches. You're recording. You can see plates moving on the table. After a little while, it gets pretty damn scary. I almost had to tap out. And but when you take the headset off, it's like, whoa! Suddenly you're back in. Back in the room of light. So the same word. So what was it?
Rialtoscuro.
Rialtoscuro, yes, definitely. Yeah. That's a T-shirt.
There you go. All right. Now, this one's a slightly longer one, but I think it's really important. For me, it was, I guess, supporting, and what we're doing, which is supporting, Australian authors and that kind of thing. So, silience is the brilliant artistry hidden all around you. So it's fun to think of your favourite musicians back when they were just starting out, setting up to perform on a street corner at a time when nobody had any idea who they were. It makes you wonder, if you'd been there, passing on the street as they played an early masterpiece, would you have noticed? Would you have stopped to listen? And I guess we can do the equivalent here of saying, a band in a pub when, you could barely hear them over the people talking. How strange that something so vibrant as art is so nearly invisible. Strange how rarely we look up at the architecture or savour each bite of a meal cooked with care, or stop to pay attention to the music playing in the background. Or for me, to read a paragraph that just moves you. That's far better than it has any right to be. It's only after someone points it out that you finally catch the tune. Makes you wonder if there's brilliance all around you, hiding in plain sight, just waiting to see if you'll notice. Who knows how many Van Goghs you might be walking past, busy doing their work, just a few years too early to recognise. Maybe the next Emily Dickinson is living just down the street, sitting on an unpublished masterpiece. Maybe she doesn't even suspect it, any more than we do. We assume that if a piece is any good, surely it will find an audience. but maybe it's mostly luck. Luck that they're not already famous, or luck that the right person just happened to look up. In art, as in love, one never knows how two people find each other, if they ever meet at all. Just imagine how much courage it must take to set a guitar case down on the cobblestones and make that first move, hoping it will resonate with someone passing by. To keep pouring your heart into something, even if it falls on deaf ears. Reaching out in the face of indifference, just to try to give people permission to care. Indifference is easy. It takes a lot of courage to fight back against it. So maybe we should stop and count ourselves lucky that there's still someone out there fighting the good fight. So there you go. That's from Silent and Brilliance. I just thought that really, for me, kind of epitomises all the artists out there still trying to, share their brilliance with the world. And, we've got our AI on the other side absolutely clogging up the Amazon algorithm and just causing havoc there at the moment.
Yeah, we were just prior to that AI, we were in that unique position in history where where it became, oddly enough, it became mainstream to find unique and emerging art because growing up it was more of a case of there could have been that amazing band or that amazing book manuscript, but realistically from a psychological point of view, a lot of us growing up, we wait until we're told what's good, as far as in a group think. So mainstream, now it's good, there's some sort of validation that's needed, in general, of course, for us to explore a particular artwork, and especially when it comes to books, a lot of times, as soon as there's advertising and there's that validation, then or bestseller, and they use that term pretty loosely sometimes, then of course you're more inclined to grab it rather than an independently published or a completely unknown author. But of course we got to that point, we're finally at that point now where we're realising that if the book title or the book description sounds like it's your cup of tea, grab it and have a read, because even if you've never heard of the person, even if it's it looks a bit scratchy, or maybe it's the very first book from this author and it's just self-published, it doesn't matter. It could be something that's going to rock your world or change your life, and then that's how it happens. And we're at that point now, which I'm glad. But yes, you're right, with the AI it's making it a bit tricky, but still it's all about just following your heart when it comes to art, isn't it? Really, and
looking at Cillians, the brilliant artistry hidden all around you.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, I think people should be starting to realise that books don't happen in 5 minutes. They don't happen in a 30-second prompt to an AI. Listening to all our authors, there are months, and I think you'll hear in Pauline's chat, again, no spoilers, the effort and the contribution of so many people that goes into having a book delivered so that, exactly as you said, the cover gets you, the blurb gets you, and you read the first page and you go, I'm in. There's a lot of work and time and artistry in writing a book. Okay, there you go. But yes, people, if you really want an interesting read, The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows by John Koenig, and as I mentioned, he's got some stuff on YouTube where he's got some beautiful images that go with some of these words as well. Okay, where are we up to? Are we done? Are we ready for news?
I think so. Let's jump into some news.
Bring it on.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. All right, news for episode 85, and I've got a couple of cool articles here. Now, you just had a brief mention there of AI, and obviously, how it's log jamming a lot of traffic nowadays, or at least filling things up. But anyway, I just wanted to share an article, and this is from a website called consult.industry.gov.au. So basically, industry consultation website. And this is the Department of Industry is currently seeking views on AI, or artificial intelligence. So this is as of June 26, 2023, when the announcement was made. So the Department of Industry is seeking view on artificial intelligence by the 26th of July, 2023. The discussion paper invites people to respond to one or more of 20 questions. Okay, and they're actually set out on pages 34 and 35, it says, so I'm assuming there's a bit of reading or some information there. Now, these questions do not explicitly refer to copyright issues, but people, they can raise copyright issues in their responses. The discussion paper does include copyright law in the list of current general regulations most relevant to AI. It also refers to the Attorney General's Department's Ministerial Roundtable on Copyright, which is as follows. At its inaugural meeting on the 23rd of February 2023, the roundtable brought together 30 organisations from a wide range of sectors with an interest in copyright. Chaired by the Attorney General, participants at this meeting identified the uncertain implications of AI for copyright law, including in relation to text and data mining, database protection, and authorship of AI-created works as an issue. This issue will be discussed further in another roundtable to be hosted by the Attorney General's Department later in 2023. So, yeah, definitely an opportunity to, perk your interest, have a look, read some of the issues that are being raised, and the opportunity to, offer a piece of your mind.
Yeah, have you say.
Absolutely.
It's important because you just don't know whether the way you think about something is the way somebody else thinks about it. And sometimes people tend to go, oh, well, I'll just let the organisations, because, groups like the Australian Society of Authors, they will certainly be, responding, and I'm sure there'll be publishers and sort of bigger writing groups. But individuals are really important, and that's what we do in Australia. Give you a say, so jump in, yeah. And
not only that, you're talking about government here, and they're pretty late to the party when it comes to technology a lot of times. So they're probably going, AI, what? So that's probably why they need, why it's important and how valuable our feedback is, because, they're I guess their attention's been a lot of other things, and now they suddenly find out.
It does take a while for the juggernaut of bureaucracy to catch up. So
so your voice is very important, and so you can visit consult.industry.gov.au, and you'll be able to find that there.
Yep.
Now, on brighter news, that's pretty cool news, but on a bit of brighter news, on Wednesday, the 16th of August, obviously 2023. Now, the Australian publishing industry is going to come together at the Book Up conference, which is taking place at the State Library Victoria in Melbourne. Lucky you, Veronica. Okay, so it will be, it's an invitation to join for a full day of experts, experts from publishing and beyond, discussing thought-provoking ideas and delivering valuable professional development for publishing staff at all levels. Now, this year's Book Up conference explores urgent issues facing Australian publishers. If you do attend the conference, you can expect topics such as developments in AI, workplace culture and innovation, along with book pricing in a time of inflation, that'd be an interesting one, through to practical sessions on publishing First Nations voices and integrating metadata into your workflow. So quite a lot there. And there's also going to be, chats from the next generation of publishing leaders as they consider the future of the industry. So very cool. So that is the Book Up conference taking place in the State Library Victoria in Melbourne on Wednesday, the 16th of August 2023. And my final little news article today is that Australia Reads has just announced the details of Volume, which is a day-long industry symposium which is dedicated to creating a stronger reading culture in Australia. So despite its ability to enhance health, knowledge and well-being, support for embedding reading in our daily lives is often overlooked. So I think so. So with national literacy and reading rates declining, which is very sad to hear, it is time for urgent action. By exploring effective ways to encourage reading alongside insights into advocacy and marketing from other industries, Volume will provide a platform to untangle the issues affecting reading engagement. So Volume will look at how to tell a strong, unified message about the benefits of reading and consider how one might work with partners and governments to create a nation of readers. So save the date, they're saying, for this free online program, which is Thursday, the 21st of September, and help turn up the volume on the value of reading. I think we'll both be attending that one if we can, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Australia Reads is a great initiative, for sure. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Well, that is my news for episode 85.
Okay, let me jump in with some... Well, let me start with the sad news first. The ABC has abolished their dedicated arts team. So significant concerns have been raised across the creative industries after the announcement that the ABC will undergo a restructure involving 120 redundancies. This includes the managing editor of arts and the digital editor of arts and the acting of their dedicated arts unit. So the Screen Arts team is going to move into the new Arts, Music and Events department, and the arts journalists will be absorbed into the digital and innovation. So it's a real worry. So the ASA, the Australian Society of Authors CEO, Olivia Lanchester, who we've spoken to in the past, she says that they are deeply concerned about cuts to art coverage, which is already extremely limited by the national broadcaster. For writers, the impact is multifaceted. fewer opportunities for journalistic work, no dedicated arts editor to whom they can pitch their articles, and diminished exposure of Australian books. In addition, as books fuel many stage and screen adaptation, its cuts to the coverage of performing arts are also hurt. So there you go. There's a little bit more hoo-ha about that, which is really important to have a little read of. So jump onto the ASA, the news website, and have a little read of that. That's a good story.
No, that's pretty shocking, and especially
when you think, when
you think about, realistically, art plays such an important role in the sense that it is an expression about, of many things, but one of those main things that art can bring is an unfiltered and truthful expression of experience in today's society, and also the feelings of us all, depending on different themes, different aspects of the community we live in, of politics, all sorts of stuff. It is, a frontier, a final frontier where we can express without potentially fear of persecution. By taking away, the ability to really promote that. Share, then, ladies and gentlemen, we're left with, like, if you still watch general TV or read newspapers, well, then it's all just from one gentleman, Murdoch, or it's going to be AI written articles. Like, don't you just have to say, like, who's getting paid $250,000 a year to think and come up with that idea? I was going to say,
what the heck? We've got the federal government, trying to contribute more to, the contribution that, creators make to the fabric of our nation, as Lanchester says, because, they're making the new Creative Australia, which was fantastic news. And yet we've got our national broadcaster saying, we're just going to sort of wash it into a coverage into, there's no editor going to champion the arts coverage and all the new stuff that's going on. So that's a bit of a worry.
I think it's a case of holding that sparkly jewellery, so you go, oh, look at that, and you don't realise the robbery that's going on. There you get your sparkly jewellery, and it's $2 costume jewellery made of plastic in China.
Anyway, so watch this space, and if you've got any opportunity to kind of support, greater coverage, please do that, because, I could go on. But anyway, that's some news. Let's have a look at them. What I started to look at was what's on in the school holidays for kids around books and those kind of things. And Australian libraries are doing some fantastic things. So look at the library in your area and you can see that the City of Melbourne Libraries has got a whole stack of stuff on. They've got queer histories around Melbourne in the first decades. ACT libraries have got Lego brick space editions. So,
I'm there.
Tuggeranong, they've got different sort of things. This is all happening in the next couple of weeks. The CSIRO have got a stack of stuff happening. There's a dinosaur romp and stomp at South Bank Library, so have a look at that. There's the Fed Square pop-up library is up until the 2nd of July, so I have to jump in really quick. Hopefully we'll get that one in. State Library of Queensland, just a quick side jump here. The Monica Clare Research Fellowship Information Evening is on the 7th of July. Now, this fellowship is awarded annually to people who identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander to research, explore and create new knowledge about Queensland's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures using the John Oxley Library and the State Library collections and resources. Now, the fellowship recipient receives a stipend of $20,000, personal workspace within the Neil Roberts Research Lounge for 12 months, and access to their collection. So just some of the stuff that I've had a bit of a look at is fantastic. So, it's live streamed via Zoom, so get in there. Back to libraries. So libraries ACT, school libraries, lots and lots of stuff happening. Yarra libraries have got, they're celebrating NAIDOC week coming up. They've got Indigenous elders and Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, and they're going to have Collingwood Children's Farm, a live music storytelling and more. State Library of New South Wales have got stuff about the cricket. We're going to move on about that. But the State Library of Queensland have got applications for the Queensland Memory Awards opening on the 3rd of July. So research fellowship information there as well. So many things. So get onto your libraries, have a bit of a look. The Byron Writers Festival is back. there we go.
I do have lots of fond memories of different events at libraries, but
Yeah.
you had me at the Space and Lego. I remember that's just brought back instant memories of how excited it was to wake up on a Saturday morning knowing we'd be going to a Lego display, which was always in winter, oddly enough, so it definitely brings back memories now. I'm sitting there on a cold winter's morning.
Yep.
But not only that, I have vivid memories of a local library where I grew up as a kid who had a special event where they were going to have a real Dalek from Doctor Who. And I was so excited I couldn't sleep, and when I got up I was so excited that my mum was going to take me there, but I have to admit I was a little bit scared too, to go see a real Dalek, and it was a little bit frightening when we walked in and there was the real Dalek, but there we go. Libraries can be pretty damn cool.
Yes, I did see a fantastic image of a Dalek which had its head popped off and the bottom was still there, and the centre was absolutely covered in flowers, and of course it said pollinate
Oh wow, that's
instead
cool.
of exterminate, so that was good. One more, Libraries Tasmania, the best Australian yarn. Don't forget that short story competition is on, $75,000 in prizes, and entries close 1st of August, so jump in. I do have to say that the CSIRO, who have, love following them, they have some great stuff happening. And there's a little thing about wombats for you, Darren. So wombats are mostly nocturnal and sleep for 16 hours a day, which would make them very bad at queuing for Taylor Swift tickets, of course. But there's this gorgeous photo of a wombat leaning down and giving another wombat a little pat on the head. He's just so cute. Anyway, that's Brenda Bella the Wombat on Instagram, people, if you want to have a look. So follow the CSIRO. There you go. That's the news. Quite a mixed bag today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very, very intrigued about the Aussie yarn, the Tasmanians.
Yeah, absolutely.
It still gives me a bit of time to come up with something too.
Well, look, it does, and it's open to published and unpublished writers from 12 years old and up. So if you've got a story inside you, get onto that. So libraries, please support them, and they do good work. Okay,
if there's a submission by Darren Kazuko in the under 15s, it's not because I'm trying to make sure I win. Well, after all that news and all the serious stuff, shall we jump into the cafe, grab a quick coffee before your spectacular interview?
Absolutely, let's go.
Cool. All right, let's meet you in there. Okay, back in the Reader's Cafe, which is always a good place on a winter's morning, as it is today at the time of recording. And I think I'm back in just a nice hustle and bustle city one, because you brought back memories of heading to the city for a Lego exhibition. So that's where I am. Except I'm an adult now. Still excited to see the space Lego.
Yeah.
Sitting watching the traffic and people buzz by in their jackets and scarves and beanies because it's so cold.
Yep.
Enjoying a good strong black coffee. What about yourself?
So I reckon that I'm going somewhere to have soup, because you're having soup. I know you have, and winter for me is soup season. So I reckon I'm going to whiz up the mountain where they know that it's cold and they know the value of soup cooked on the premises, fresh that day, and I'm going to slide into a booth and hope that the fire is on.
Well, of course it's going to be on.
Yeah.
I've only got electric heaters in my cafe, which I don't like, so I'm already a little bit hot. Got to take all my clothes off again. Mm-hmm. But speaking of soup, I actually made my cat soup.
Oh, did you?
And it was a success.
Yeah, what did you put in Bobby's soup?
Oh, that's a secret, but that's my Aussie tale.
Oh, okay. Oh,
No, I made a chicken soup because I was sick of buying the expensive melting soups and thought, I've got to be able to make that, surely. And
was he happy with it? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh,
so I feel like a bit of a cat chef superstar now. Nonetheless, in the Writers' Cafe, would you like me to do a bit of a spotlight on some of the cool books? I've got some really cool books for a spotlight this episode. Now, these are all predominantly children's books, and they may or may not have something to do with a bit of surprise coming. But I'd like to start, before I read the spotlight, just by sharing a quick tale, a true Aussie yarn, because you mentioned wombats just before we hopped into the cafe, and I do love wombats.
You do. That's what I had to say, even though it was it's an image and you couldn't see it, I'm sure you could imagine it.
Yeah, but do you know what? I'm not saying that the wombat's going to have his number one spot on the chart taken, but there is a contender, because we're out at the property out the bush on the weekend, just doing some stuff, and we've got got a bathtub. Long story short, there's a bathtub there built into the ground with a grate for the birds and for the water for the kangaroos. So I went in to check how much rain we'd had and see how full it is. And who's sitting in there snorkeling and making bubbles in the water for some weird reason was an echidna. And I realised the echidna had got in but couldn't get out, so I was worried. I'm thinking, how long have you been there? Like, it's been 2 weeks since we've been out there.
Yeah.
So, but he looked all right, or she, I don't know. So I was like, I don't know if I want to grab him. So I had to gently get a shovel and slowly lift him out. And then he sort of waddled a little bit, dug himself in, cute as could be. And so we thought we'd leave him alone, and I was doing some other stuff. And lo and behold, half hour later, guess who's back in the bathtub? I'm like, are you kidding me, mate? So then
Because they can swim. They are great swimmers.
Yeah, well, he was enjoying the water, but he just couldn't get back out. That was the problem.
Yeah.
So I actually built a ramp, put that in, and left him, and then came back, and yeah, he'd got out, was gone. Anyway, next morning we're doing stuff outside, and who pops up is our little friend the echidna, and he was suddenly like a pet. It was really bizarre. He was like waddling around looking and walked up, pretty much walked over my feet, wanted to go in the front door, was cruising. So very cool. So yeah, such a complete alien creature too. They're very much
They are my favourites, and
but they're
you know,
cool as
they are so good. And really, you know, they don't usually give a toss about humans. They're pretty much just busy on their own thing. And of course, that's the character that I'm writing, and hybrid human echidna in my new sci-fi book that I'm working on at the moment, that I've just got to 59,000 words this morning. So
nice.
Yes. And there's so much research and stuff. They are one of the smartest animals because the size of their brain to body ratio is huge. So they are clever. They're introverts.
Are you sure? He jumped back in. He jumped back into the bath.
He
I knew he couldn't get out.
He knew there were humans there that would let him out, that would work it out for him. So there you go. But they are delightful.
And of course, the echidna is our mascot for Aussie Tales. So there we go.
Indeed.
Come full circle. All right. So here is, I'm going to spotlight. These are all predominantly children's books and picture books. So I'm going to run through. If you would like to have a great picture book or children's book to read to the little ones, or whether it's your own kids, whether it's friends' children, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in libraries during school holidays, here are some fantastic titles. The first title is called Dear Greta, and this is by author Yvette Poshoglian. So Dear Greta is as follows. When everything seems to be going wrong, sometimes you just have to stand up for what you believe in, even if it's just in your own little corner of the world. This was meant to be Alice's year to shine, but things are already going wrong. At school, she's given young environmental activist Greta Thunberg as her pen pal for a fictional writing assignment. Why couldn't Alice get someone easy to write to, like a pop star? Then she's put in charge of taking the Harmony Day food fair online, which seems impossible, especially when she has teamed up with the most annoying boy in her school. And if she didn't have enough on her plate, Alice gets kicked out of her bedroom by her grandmother coming to stay. And no matter what Alice does, she'll never be able to live up to her infuriating big sister's achievements, right? Through her letters to Greta, Alice finds herself opening up about her life. And as Alice approaches the hard questions by wondering, what would Greta do? She starts to believe that she can make a difference, a big one. And that is Dear Greta by Yvette Poshoglian.
There you go.
Yeah, and of course all of these titles can be found under our children's genre on the website. So if you want to look at delve into it a little bit more and look at some of the fabulous covers, jump in and have a look. But the next one is called, well, we mentioned this in the news a little bit, the ABC Kids Guide to Loving the Planet. Now this is by Jaclyn, Crupi, and illustrated by Cheryl Orsini. And this is the long-awaited new title in a much-loved series which will empower kids to change their world. So our planet is precious. It's where we live, learn, work and play. And this charming picture book is a gentle introduction to caring for the world around us. The simple, engaging text and beautiful illustrations explore ideas like planting veggie gardens and recycling to show the ways every person, no matter how big or small, can make a difference. This is the perfect book to inspire children to love the planet, and that is the ABC Kids Guide to Loving the Planet. Now, speaking of cool books and with wicked pictures, and Australian animals too, On the Trail of the Plains Wanderer is the next title, and it is the subtitle A Precious Australian Bird, and that's by Rohan Cleave and it's illustrated by Julian Teh. And this is the story of the Plains Wanderer, a critically endangered Australian bird that is truly unique. The Plains Wanderer is unlike any other bird on Earth. It is a one of a kind. On the Trail of the Plains Wanderer tells the true story of one of Australia's most critically endangered bird species. This unique, quirky and precious bird faces many threats, but continues to survive against the odds. Discover more about this fascinating bird and see how people are providing hope for their future. And that is On the Trail of the Plains Wanderer, a precious Australian bird. So continuing on the animal theme, the next book is Australia's Endangered Bush Creatures by Myke Mollard. Now, Australia's wild creatures are facing a fast-changing environment that has humankind's fingerprint all over it, and hundreds are in danger of complete extinction. We can't save what we don't know or understand. Awareness is paramount to helping these endangered creatures survive into the lifetimes of future generations. Myke Mollard's signature illustrations and engaging text bring kids up close and personal with 134 of Australia's most endangered creatures, highlighting both the common and uncommon threats to each species and revealing the fragile balance that exists in nature and how our human impact is collapsing ecosystems and unbalancing the natural world. So while some of these creatures may be iconic and well studied, many of these are less known, but all have their plight, beauty and character delicately presented in this important new book. And that is Australia's Endangered Bush Creatures by Myke Mollard.
Sad to think there are so many, and I saw on the news the other day other little sort of horny dragon lizard gecko-y, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it's just gone onto the endangered species list, so yeah, it's not good.
134, and that's just of some of them.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So please share this with your kids and think about it. Yep, keep going.
Okay, so the next one is a cool one. It's called We Are Australians by Duncan Smith and Nicole Godwin, and is illustrated by Jandamarra Cadd. So for those born in Australia, it's easy to take citizenship and its responsibilities for granted. But there is much more to being an Australian citizen than having a passport and the right to vote. We Are Australians encourages reflection and for readers to look further into topics of citizenship and the role of Australia's First Nations people. The poetic writing style creates a rich and respectful text, and the bright colours add a joyfulness and a sense of celebration. The use of traditional First Nations techniques reinforces the longevity and importance of a culture that has lived on Australian land for over 65,000 years. So yeah, that sounds like a pretty damn cool book, and that is We Are Australians by Duncan Smith and Nicole Godwin, illustrated by Jandamarra Cadd. And there we go. I've got quite a few more to spotlight, but I'm going to save that for the next episode because that is quite a few there already.
Yes.
So jump onto the children's genre on the Australian Book Lovers website to discover more of all of those fantastic books. You know, a great opportunity to grab hot off the press, brand new titles with a very Australian central theme to read to wonderful new listeners and readers coming up.
So a great opportunity for school holidays. Get yourself a book, get down to the library, or buy a new book from all of the fabulous ones on Australian Book Lovers websites. Drop into a local bookstore. There you go.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Even Woofy agrees.
Sorry.
And,
Thanks, Gibbs, for that little thing. All right, moving along, Darren.
yeah, well, that is my spotlight for the episode. But what
Beautiful.
about yourself, Veronica? What have you been reading on these cold, frosty, almost -6 days over there?
Yes, indeed. So I've finished a couple of quite, I guess, longer stories. So one was The Long Earth by Terry Pratchett and Simon Baxter. Every time I see Simon Baxter, I think of Allan Baxter, the Australian horror writer, but no, it's not him. So yes, I have read that. I've finished Sand Talk by Tyson Yunkaporta, which is How Indigenous Thinking Can Save the World. So many things. And echidnas are in here, of course. How Indigenous Thinking Can Save the World. Lots of good things about that. And I have finished also. So I'm 66 books completed, which is only 5 books ahead of schedule.
Oh,
it's
man.
been, it's a little bit sad. I finished Gone by Midnight, which was the 3rd in the trilogy by Candice Fox. And I started reading, I won't say what it is, but I started reading, listening to another YA sci-fi based in Melbourne. I thought, this will be perfect. But yeah, it just didn't grab me, so I had to stop. which is a bit sad. So now I am going on with my other bits and pieces.
But that's what it's all about, isn't it? We were talking about that, discovering art, that, that's early infancy sometimes. That may be. But, by being adventurous, not everything's going to be the best. And it may be the best for somebody else, but that's the only one way to find out.
Indeed it is. So, yes, the Long Earth is interesting. I've started on the Long War now. And I tell you, the other one that I'm reading at the moment is Children of Time. And one of the other authors in the novel writing course that I'm doing with the AWC recommended it to me. It's Adrian Tchaikovsky, and there's spiders in it, so I hope my daughter's not listening, but they're spiders and really deep research into spider culture and biology and their communication, and they get this kind of nanovirus that gets them going. It is absolutely fascinating, and humans of course are doing a dreadful job at surviving and fighting and keeping themselves going. So that's coming up to the really good bit. That'll do us. So that's what I'm reading.
Excellent. Well, now that we've enjoyed a bit of at least for me, I've had a good strong coffee. You've enjoyed a soup. Let's step out of the cafe, and because I am really keen to hear a conversation about horror. Oh, and many other things, of course. But horror, you've already sold me. So I'll see you back on the other side.
All right. I hope you are ready for this, because this is a brilliant chat. And I do admit I go a little bit fangirl on Pauline, which she takes very gracefully and with a great deal of equanimity. So let's, without further ado, because I introduced Pauline in her brilliant bio and her books, talk to the fabulous author, Pauline Yates.
Oh, yes, I'm excited for this one. So absolutely, let's go.
Lovers, we have a treat for you today. I am so pleased that we have, I won't say finally, because, Pauline has just put her book out, but, don't feel any pressure at all. I have with me today Pauline Yates. Now, Pauline is the Australian author of Memories Don't Lie, fast-paced science fiction novel inspired by her love for dark and dangerous action and adventure. And I'm going to read her long bio because it's really good. So just have to sit there for a minute, Pauline.
Thank you.
Pauline is an Australian Shadows Awards finalist. Her short-form horror, dark fiction and poetry appear in publications including Black Hair Press, the IFWG Publishing Australia, Redwood Press, Midnight Echo, Pseudopod, Aurealis, Tales to Terrify, Black Heart Publishing, Metamorphosis, plus others. And her AHWA winning short story, The Best Medicine, was translated in the Mondi Incantati series, I hope I've said that right in my best Italian, produced by Riflessi di Lunare from Italy. Now, Pauline is also a member of the Australasian Horror Writers Association, that is the AHWA that I was mentioning, and the Horror Writers Association, and helps to judge the Australian Shadow Awards in various categories. Say on the social scene, she goes by at Midnight Muser because she loves writing at midnight when her muse is the most volatile. She shares her writing space with her aged cat, who we've just had a little conversation about, and that cat is determined to break the world's oldest feline record, and a dog who is terrified of the cat, as it should be. She enjoys taking photos of the sunrise if she wakes up in time, and loves to encourage native wildlife and birds into her garden. Welcome, Pauline Yates.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you for having me.
As I said, you are most welcome. Really pleased to have you here. Now, we do try and ask people whose traditional owners land their ponds. I'm here on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung down in Victoria. Where are you, Pauline?
And I can't tell you that. And the reason why I can't tell you that is because there's a bit of conflict with the local clans as to who actually lays claim to what area. And that is still being worked out. So as much as I would love to attach a name to my bio and where I'm, in my location and where I'm from, I won't until I'm absolutely sure I've got the names right.
Absolutely fair enough. We are right up on the border of Wurundjeri. We're kind of near the Macedon Ranges, which was a real meeting place, Hanging Rock, Mount Macedon. So we've got sort of three mobs who all kind of joined around here, but it's like the river and the mountain range is kind of the border, so it's still kind of okay.
We've got kind of cross boundaries somewhere. We do personally know quite a few elders. Just the most gorgeous people, honestly. And they've sort of been trying to work this out for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think to date I still haven't got a clear, or nobody really has a clear understanding as who's right, who's wrong, who lays what, because there is you're going back a long way to figure out who is where.
Absolutely,
So until we get that absolutely clarified, I'm just here.
Just there, we'll just say we respect the traditional owners and leave it at that.
Yes.
And so many good stories, and your story is so good. I was a little bit fangirling when I said, I'm going to interview Pauline. That's very exciting.
I have a fan. Do you know how good that makes me feel to know that I have a fan?
I am glad because, I really enjoyed your book, and it was really hard to put down. I am a shocker for, picking up books and going, I'll just start this. I'll just read a couple of chapters. You made that very impossible. Before we get... just to sit there and enjoy that feeling, because before we get too far, I want to tell people about Memories Don't Lie, because I absolutely loved it. Here is the blurb. Sarah Wilson, the orphaned niece of Lieutenant John Wilson, is determined to escape his restrictive upbringing and find her place in the world. Her journey takes a deadly turn when she uncovers secrets about her past, hidden deep in her mother's memories, and that threaten everything Sarah wants. They could cost her everything she holds dear and her life. And then you also include this little excerpt, which is, "Don't let him find her. My dead mother's desperate plea takes my thoughts hostage, shattering my composure and threatening the freedom I long for. Why am I remembering this when nothing's happened in the last 13 years? All my focus needs to be on passing my final sharpshooting assessment. The cryptic recollection should be the last thing on my mind." Ta-da.
There we go. That was the opening.
That is the opening. I thought,
you don't know how many times I've rewritten that opening.
There you go. Well, tell me, how long has Memories Don't Lie been in your mind? When did it start tickling the muse, the midnight muse?
I think I have had my character Sarah for my entire life.
Wow.
She has always been with me, and I do recall years and years ago when I had to write down maybe a pen name for something, I would use Sarah.
Right,
so she's always been with me.
Yep.
I think writing this novel helped me find out who she actually was. And this also is partly the reason why it took me so long to write this novel, because I wasn't sure. So when I first started writing, when I sat down and said, okay, I've got to write my book now.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember back. This is going back 10 years. So back in 2012, when I sat down and said, right, it's time to write my book. I'm not reading anything else until I write mine.
So easy for us to procrastinate, isn't it?
I was really lucky at that point because I was still stumbling around. What am I going to write? I'm trying to think of what will make a really good book, as you do, because sure, we can sit down, we can write anything, but I was getting serious now and thinking, okay, if I'm going to write a book, what do I want to read? Firstly, that was the biggest important question to answer. But then how do I, what kind of story do I want to write? And I was really lucky that I had a dream, a really vivid dream that I can still remember to this day. And the dream was of a girl running along the top of a roof, and it was a 5-story building. She was being chased by soldiers or something. She's jumped off the building. She hasn't hurt herself. And then she's run into a dark alley and got caught by another person, a man, who said he would help her, hide her, and keep her safe. So that dream...
That is amazing.
I know. Look, I actually wrote that dream. That was an original scene in this story, but it's since been cut. But I did work on that scene quite extensively.
Mm-hmm.
That opened up the box of questions for me to answer as who is my character? Who is the man offering to protect her and why? Who are the people chasing her? How did she jump off a building and not hurt herself? You know, so I had all these questions that I could then answer. And look, honestly, it all just poured out from there.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I've just been reading Stephen King's on writing, and he just talks about, for him, it's like a scene, you know, like a situation, and the characters kind of come along. And yours is a bit of a combination then. Sarah's obviously been tapping on your brain for a while, and she said, you know, what about this? Finally got you opening the door.
Well, I'm a very visual writer, so I can imagine the scenes in my head. It like play out in my mind like a movie, and then I've got to try and transfer that onto. It doesn't always work, like I would like to. But the characters actually came to me fairly easily once I started really thinking about it. All the characters in this came to me very, very easily and really quickly. And it was then just a matter of getting to know who they were, their ins and outs, where they fit in this story and how they were all related. And that just evolved over time. Pretty much every character is who, as you read them in this book, is who they were when I very first started.
Ah, that's fantastic.
So they haven't changed. Yeah.
And there's such a great group of people, so many good people to cheer for here. And you've been able to blend all the things that they do particularly well. And I know that, you know, say military fiction or heroes and marine type people is maybe not everybody's cup of tea, but it's certainly the way you put it together with a really lovely layer of the relationship stuff. And I think there's just a little hint of romance. You know, let's just talk about that a little bit. Put that there.
I'm a romantic at heart. Yeah. So
and that's what I find. I think sometimes if you see a really hard sci-fi military one, I think, but what are the people doing? Whereas you've been able to, you know, blend the two, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like, I know it's classed as military sci-fi. It's more the inner workings of it, and that's only the military is only the backdrop. But the story is about the characters and their relationships and what my main character Sarah has to go through to find out who she is. That's just how it evolved, how I wanted to write it. I wasn't going to get bogged down in too much military action. There's enough action in this as it is, but
there is a lot of action. Yes,
But for people who are maybe thinking, I don't read military science fiction, I would suggest, well, you haven't read this. This is different.
It absolutely is different. And now, no spoilers. Please don't give any spoilers away.
Try not to.
But thinking about the memory and the sort of genetic engineering, you know, I really love that thread that is what you've built the story around. What kind of inspired you to put that in? And I know you've mentioned that your muse told you that she jumped off the building without hurting herself. So how did you then come up with what you came up with?
This was also something else that evolved, and this was more for the reader's benefit, that I used memories, because originally it was my character had a voice in her. I already knew that it would be along some kind of genetic enhancement theme, but when you're writing and when you're editing and making things work so that it's easy to understand, it evolved into memories. I thought memories are something that, you know, I can imagine like daydreams, because like I said, I'm very visual, and I can imagine a daydream. I'm constantly talking to myself and hear voices in my head. You know, that was actually really easy for me to pull together once I worked out the best way to show this to the reader. It was very clear in my mind what I wanted, but to express it on the page took some tweaking. So that's where we came up with the memories, with the memory orbs, the different colours to distinguish between them, so the reader knew exactly at any one point in time who was thinking what and who was who. So that took a lot of editing and a lot of reworking, but it's worked out at the end really well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You love telling stories because Memories Don't Lie is not your only work out there. You've been an established writer for quite a while. You've got a good degree, as we mentioned in your bio, but you've got short fiction all over the place, which is fantastic. Sci-fi, fantasy and horror. So why does that kind of, and you're preaching to the converted here, but why those kind of genres, those ideas? Why do you think that is what floats your boat?
Okay, I have an answer to this, and I think it's a good answer because I was thinking about this only recently. Look, I think my first stories started out more sci-fi. I think one of my very first stories that I had published with Abyss and Apex was a sci-fi, and with Metaphorosis was a sci-fi. So obviously I must love sci-fi. As I progressed, because I used short stories for a couple of reasons. One, to improve my writing skills. And I highly recommend, if anyone just wants to just improve their writing in general, is to write short stories. It really helped tighten up so much of my work. And then, of course, everything I've done in my short stories and learnt from that, I've applied to my novel. And this is why I've managed to fit this story into 95,000 words, through cutting and editing and, really scaling it down. I've also written, I was happy to try any genre starting out. Just if a story came to me, I would write it, I would have a go. But as I progressed through, if I'm trying to publish those stories, the markets for some stories aren't there. For example, I love writing comedy. I don't particularly think I'm very humorous, just so you know. But, but I do love writing dark comedy. I have sold one story to Betty Noor years ago, and it's a little dark horror story, a comedy that I sold, and I was quite proud of that one. I think I got a finalist in a competition with that one as well. But the market for dark comedy isn't there. Certainly not a paying market, I think I only earned $10 for that story. I thought, okay. But it's in a book, it's in a publication and it's on my bookshelf. So that's great. But through all my endeavours of trying different genres, I found that I was getting pretty good. I was naturally good at the darker fiction. And then, of course, I fell into the horror. Okay. Now, as you'll notice, a lot of my most published stories are horror. But that's for two reasons. One, because I've discovered I got good at it, so I started to pursue horror. Two, you can sell horror to a lot of different places. There's a huge market for horror stories. So, of course, if you want to try and earn some money out of your writing, mind you, it's not much for short stories, but it's something. I might buy you a cup of coffee. Yeah, so definitely go the horror genre, because there are markets for it. But this is the main reason I love writing horror. When you write horror, it really pushes the extremes of the emotions. Everything is extreme. In the fear factor, in the screams, in the fright, just general emotions in your characters are all pushed to the limit. But so I found that by writing horror, I actually took those extremes of emotions and could apply it to my other stories as well. And suddenly that brought my other stories alive and made them more extreme in their emotions. I don't consider myself a very emotionally expressive person in real life. So to be able to express emotion in my stories, which I'm still working on, of course, it takes some practice when you're, a bit of a boring, non-emotional person. But the horror genre allows you to go to the full lengths of that, which I just love. You're not just scared, you're really, really scared. You know what I mean?
You're petrified,
Yeah, so, and then from learning from that, I can then take what I've learned from expressing the extreme emotions and take that back to other stories as well, and push the boundaries with that as well. So that's why I love writing horror.
Darren, my co-host, he'll be desperately disappointed that you picked this particular slot to have an interview, because he's a horror writer. He loves the horror too. So I'll just say na. So there you go. Which of course is very unprofessional of me.
But you're my number one fan. So
absolutely. So I have to do it. In this book, and I was very pleased to see that there might be some sequels, but are there any secrets hidden in the writing?
Yeah, there is. Well, maybe not secrets, but little snippets that I've left just unended.
Yep.
I haven't wrapped up everything.
That's excellent, because this team, they need more pages. They definitely need more pages.
They do. They will have more pages, and that has already been written. I've just got to go back to the editing stage of it now, and I held off. So when I first wrote the first one, Memories Don't Lie, I put that aside and wrote the second in the series and the third in the series, and took notes for the fourth in the series. So that was over a period of about 3 years. So they're all there. And then...
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're all sitting there waiting for me. And then I got to the end of that and I thought, okay, there's no point me spending any more time on these, because until I get the first one right.
Yeah.
And the first one right and basically published, and see how it goes, out in the world. So now that I've done that and I've finally figured out the first one and it's all signed, sealed, delivered, I can now go back to the second one. It is all there. It will need a rewrite now to suit, but not too much. The basic plot is there, and all the characters are still there. A lot of that hasn't changed. My backdrop and certain elements need to now be tweaked to suit what's in the first, and also to start pulling out those little threads that I didn't tie off in the first one, and actually start expanding on those. So I've just been allowing myself a little bit of time. I plan on getting back into that maybe June. That's my calendar date for it. And then, I will sit down and really head down working on number 2.
Excellent. Yes, because, if I see you too much on social media, I'll be, giving you a poke saying get back to writing.
You can poke me. That's okay. I don't mind the prods, because honestly, those things keep me going.
Keep you going.
To know that somebody out there in the world other than me actually wants to read a sequel.
It's waiting for your story. Yes.
Yeah, you've no idea how much that gives me. I'm like, okay, I have a reader.
Yes, you've got a responsibility,
Yeah.
All right. Now, you mentioned all of the characters and what where they're heading for, sequels, etc. Tell me your most or least favourite character to write.
I actually don't have any least favourite. I really don't.
Yep.
I love them all. And I love them all because I can go to the extremes of who they are, their character traits in every one of them, whether they be good or bad. And again, this is where the horror writing really came in handy, because I learned how to push those emotional elements and find really nasty characters. I could then do the same in this novel, from the, really express the good and really express the bad. So, push out and make everything bigger.
Yeah.
So it's yes, we have characters that we love and characters that are quite nasty. But for me as the writer, I honestly do love stepping into the various shoes and being the good guy, being the bad guy, and bringing them out as much as I can. Yeah, to make them that. I like them all.
Yeah, this is excellent. Tell me about the message, I guess, that it comes into your work, and be it horror, be it sci-fi, fantasy, contemporary fiction, romance. There generally is like a message or a theme that people often have as an unconscious sort of thread in their stories. What do you think is the strongest message in Memories Don't Lie?
I do have a lot of themes that involve the relationship between father and daughter. and the strength there, because I think my relationship with my father was very strong and very important. He was my biggest fan as well.
Yep.
He was always so proud of me. And I guess for me, I always wanted to make him proud.
Yep.
And I think I have, which is why I have dedicated this book to him and to my mum.
Yeah.
So that was very important to me. So family relationships absolutely are run strongly through not only this novel but many of my other stories, I think, too. On a more sort of individual level, as far as my main characters go, I think it's about digging deep and really trusting yourself and finding strength within yourself to overcome obstacles. Yeah, that's quite important for my characters. It's important for me as a person to know that I have that I can 100% rely on myself. But then if you can't, if you need help, then you can look to your circle of friends around you or the people around you, whether it be family or close friends, and know that they are there for you as well. And that was a really important theme in this novel, In Memories Don't Lie. Sarah being on her own pretty much her whole life. She didn't have that, and that's what she wanted. And she that was her main goal, to try and find that.
How much research did you have to do around sort of the DNA genetic engineering? Because it all sounded entirely plausible.
So much research. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
No, I did do a lot. I wanted to make sure that the concepts for a start that I was doing were plausible. They didn't have to be like the concept I've got in this novel. It doesn't have to have happened, though I'm sure somebody's probably figured it out by now. If not, they'll read this book and figure it out. Yeah. So I wanted to make it as realistic as possible, but I wrote it in a way that there was, that little bit of speculative element in it that maybe it hasn't been done yet, but it could be. Yeah. Always that possibility there. One thing I didn't want to get bogged down in with was technical details, because there's nothing I hate reading worse than a whole list of technical details. As well as that, I didn't want to get it wrong. So it was important to make it's more suggestive details. So yes, this is possible, and it's, as you say, you can back it up with real science, but I can only do that because I have actually studied the real science. But then so I have that behind it.
Yeah.
But when I wrote about it, I wasn't specific. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you can give it enough of an outline that people can colour it in as they want, but it doesn't trip them up enough to go, I don't see that's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't want to get pinned down to facts that were possibly incorrect, because, the science world and the genetic world, there is so much to know. So I did do a lot of research on it. I feel like I had a really good basis to then write my story from, knowing that, it's all going to match. You can look any of this up and you'll find it. Yeah. Any concept that you want to find more about, you just Google it, you'll find it somewhere. I went through so many portals, so many rabbit holes. Ended up in academic forums with scientists and just so much information. My daughter at the time, she was studying genetics at university, and if I came across stuff I didn't understand, I'd be calling her, or I'd send her a message, look, is this possible? And if I did this, would it work? Just to try and get a bit more clarity of what I wanted, what I foresaw, and see, is it even remotely possible? That's all I needed, just a possibility, because then I can expand from there.
Did you encourage her to go into genetics to make sure she'd be there as a backup for your book? That's what I want to know. She may not listen to this podcast.
She will listen to this
Damn it.
podcast.
Okay.
And no. She's very clever with maths. Actually, she's now a
Right.
maths teacher.
There you go.
And she did genetics and science. She did a double degree. She's quite clever, my daughter. And she did a double degree, and genetics was her major, I think. So it was just handy at the time.
Yeah, perfect. We love to have experts at the end of a
We
text
do.
or phone call.
Yeah, someone I
Very
can just
good.
text. Yep.
Yeah. Even though this is way more than a military action, all of those details were also really well thought out and smooth. Weapons and training and all of those kind of things. Is that from hours and hours of watching, NCIS, or is there something else behind your...
Actually, I can't remember the last time. I do enjoy a military movie, but I didn't actually watch movies to get all these details. Again, it was the research. I actually looked up courses, if I wanted to join the army, what would I be
right.
doing? What clothes would I need to get the proper information? And then because it was in America, not Australia, I'd have to look up the American army and say, okay, if I want to join, if I want to enlist, what do I do? What can I expect? Where will I be living? What will I be wearing? Interestingly, I found really a fun fact. I don't know if it's in here, but a fun fact I found was they only allow certain soldiers of a certain size because so that all the clothes are the same size, they only have to order a particular size. And I thought, because some of the characters in my story are quite large.
Yes.
Big, beefy soldiers.
Yeah.
Well, actually, in real life, I don't
They
think
wouldn't
that
get
really
in.
happens because they won't get clothes in to fit them.
There you go.
So I just ignored that.
Yeah.
I wasn't changing one of my
that was
characters.
literary license. Yeah, fair enough.
But
Fair
I did. And it was funny. There was one time because when I was trying to work out how to compare my teams, because I've got them in teams, and I wanted them compared to SWAT teams, but not the same. Okay, so that again was another whole round of edits to try and work out how can I put together this team that's kind of in the near future, but it's very similar to what a SWAT team would be here now. And then when you know it, one day I'm reading the paper, and what happens to be in the middle section of the paper is a whole pages and pages of the Australian SWAT teams, what they wear, what they do. I couldn't believe it. I actually still have that newspaper clipping. I've got it in a box and stored that. And yes, I read through all that too.
There you go. I think that was your muse pointing you in that direction. We get those sort of serendipitous chances. Sometimes you go, okay, I know I'm meant to
There
write this
were a
book.
lot of really weird things that used to happen when I was writing this book. That was one of them. Another one was when I went to a park and I thought, I'm just going to sit down and write, and I think I'm going to work on my book, and I'm just not sure. And then I've had a look on, how you get graffiti scratched into tabletops and at parks. Yeah, there was Sarah Wilson scratched into the
No
name. I could not
way!
believe it.
Oh, yeah, spooky.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
book had a life of its own, and it was really just waiting for you to interpret it or translate it out of
I think
the
so.
ether.
It certainly didn't let me go. A lot of authors will say or recommend, you don't publish your first book, you publish your fourth book. Or if it's not working, you write one, you put it aside and go write something else and publish that one instead. Okay, well, I've written this one about 4 or 5 times, so technically it classes as my fourth book, okay?
Totally counts.
Yeah. But it wouldn't let me go. There were many times where I almost gave up on it. I never really got serious, but there were moments of doubt where I thought, I just can't make this work. And I'd put it aside for a few more months, and then I'd pull it back out and have another crack at it. It wouldn't let me go. And I'm really pleased because this is my story.
Yeah.
And these are my characters, and I just wanted to bring them to life as best I could. And I've finally done that. So I've achieved something that I really set out to do and put my mind to, and I've achieved it.
Yeah,
So,
and it's not an instant overnight success, as people say, but there is a lot of work, there's a lot of skill, there's hours and hours of editing and thinking and all of those sort of connections that you have to make. Yeah, fantastic.
But if you're sitting there as a reader and you're saying you love it, like as I said, that means so much to me, because that means that all that hard work that I've done, and all the doubts, all the days of doubts, and not wondering if this is ever going to work, it has worked. I now have readers who not only understand the story, because it is quite complex in when I put it all together, they understand it and they love it and want more.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Honestly, for a writer, how good is that?
That is good. We were talking, Darren and I, on the last episode, which we recorded on the weekend, about the joy of people engaging in your story. And I think there was something that Ashley Kalajian-Blunt said about that kind of feeling that people that authors get when somebody absolutely engages in your work. And, yeah, I think, Pauline, you can tick that box off your list really well.
Well, that just makes my day, because you never know. When I called for ARC readers for this, I was the most terrified I've ever been. I knew that I loved the story, my publisher loved the story, the editors loved the story. But when I put it out to ARC readers, oh my God, I was so scared. How is this going to go across? Honestly, I needn't have worried, but it is nerve-wracking, because I'm bearing my soul here for the first time, even though I've already bared it to a group of people already. But when it goes out into the world as a published book, you're bearing your soul to the world. This is my work, and this is pretty much my writing career on the line here. And I'm just so grateful for the reviews that have come in, and to know that you are now my number one fan.
Yes, put me up there.
And that people, and
I'm not alone. This is the thing, Pauline. You've got a number of great reviews out there.
I've got some fabulous reviews. I'm really awed by that, because they have totally exceeded what I even expected. I kind of thought, as most writers probably do, oh, yeah, we liked it, great story, read this book. But to get the in-depth reviews that I did, people have really liked it and really got caught up in the whole concept of what's in this novel, the whole science behind it, and it really makes you think. And I guess I thought, well, wow, I've written something really special here that's made people think. Yeah. And that is really good. It's a really good feeling. It is
really good, yes, because you want people to come away from your book a little bit changed. And I think that's what you've been able to achieve,
I do believe I have seen changes in people after they've read this book, in my very first readers. And it's been a positive change, which I've always held on to, because even though I'm a horror writer, yes, I like to scare people. But with this book, yes, I've got some horror aspects in there and some dark moments in there. But overall, it's an uplifting book, I feel.
Yeah.
And if you can walk away from it and go, oh, wow, that just makes me think. I don't know what makes you think, but whatever it makes you think, it's on a positive level. And that makes me really happy to know that can happen to people, that they can read this and go away with a story now in their head that will have changed them, or not changed them in some way, but made them really think about themselves. And just, it brightens their whole outlook. How good is that?
That is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And and you've also done the perfect balance of leaving people wanting more. And as science fiction and fantasy and horror writers, we like a series. We love a few bricks to keep our doors open. I think you've been able to balance that tying off and that feeling of, the climax, and then we're happy with where things finish, but we're just itching for some more. Because we can see the potential in the story going forward. So
thank you so much. Look, I must thank my editors that I used, Eleanor Hartwell-Taylor. She helped me a lot unravel a lot of this and get myself out of the tangled knots that I put myself in. I honestly, if it was not for her, this wouldn't. I'm sure I would have eventually got this book written, but she helped speed up the process.
tell us a little bit about that process. So how complete is your story before you send it to your editor? And was editor with Black Hair Press? Because that's your...
Yeah, so with the publisher is Black Hair Press. And when I sent it to them, it was pretty much 99.9% complete. But only because I'd got my own editors in the years before that to do that. So there was a lot of editing rounds before the publisher even saw it. Otherwise, I don't think they would have taken it on, to be honest. And that's just the work that you have to do. And I knew that. And I was prepared to, because I was so sold on this story and thinking, no, I can make this work. But I need professional help to get it to a workable stage. So I actually used 3 different editors on this book for various stages. Yeah. So the first editor I used was Eleanor, and she was just absolutely brilliant at helping me, one, boost my confidence that this was a good story and keep me going, and just helping me iron out a lot of details, particularly because this is in America and she's an American editor. And
great.
So she also writes mysteries and crime mysteries. So she also had a lot of knowledge on guns and policemen and the etiquette in that. So that was really, really good to help straighten out, my writing when I'm talking guns and things like that. So that was all very helpful. Then when she got busy with her novel, she has an absolutely brilliant novel out, All We Buried, and she got busy with that. And I wasn't ready to go any further with my novel. I needed to sit back and actually untangle a few more knots that I'd managed to get myself into. So when I'd put my novel aside, and then I just went searching in general for some writing help in general, just to get myself back on track. I feel like I'd strayed off my path a bit and I'd lost my way. And I stumbled across Savannah Gilbo. Now, Savannah Gilbo is also in America, and she's a fiction writing podcaster, and she does, not from notes to novels courses and stuff like that. And I thought, and she had, because I'm also conscious of what all this was costing me, I thought I'll just sign up and sign up for, getting, say, 10,000 words assessed so I can just see where I'm going right and wrong and whatever. We ended up using my novel for my work to work on, and then I ended up, sort of working on her on the structural edits. I kind of got stuck at chapter 9. I wasn't sure which way to go. That's why I'd put it aside. And when I started working with Savannah, she actually gave me the tools then that I needed to untangle those more knots that I'd put myself into and give me the skills to actually finish the book. So I worked with her up to about chapter 9, and then I said, listen, I just need to go now and go and finish this book with taking everything that you've taught me now and all the previous stuff that I've done, take it all now and move forward, because the last part of the book, it hadn't actually changed a lot. It was more the beginning of the book I always had trouble with, was knowing exactly where to start it, knowing who knew who, like the characters, who what did they know, who did they know, where were they from, and getting all that set up. That's what took the most work. But once I had that confidence to really sit down and get this book written, I worked on it solidly for about 3 months, I think, and really pushed hard. And this is where you've got to do the work. You've got to jump off social media. I think the only person I was talking to on social media at this time was KM Allan, and she was my huge inspiration. Just
she's
keep
brilliant,
writing.
isn't she? Yeah,
Just
she's
keep
a great
writing.
support. Yeah,
and I'd send her little messages every now and then. I hope you don't mind, but you're my inspiration at the moment. Because she's really great for that.
She is.
And I did. I got it done. I got it finished, and I thought, okay, now what do I do? This is actually really exciting. So I messaged Savannah again and I said, look, can I send this to you for a full structural edit? And that's what I did. I did a full structural edit with her. We ironed out a few more things that needed fixing up. And then I went away again and went through the whole novel again. And I was starting to this is where I'm starting to get really, really close now to really scale it down. Once I got that structural process done and I had my novel, I needed another editor. And I thought, I won't use Savannah because I like using fresh eyes.
Yeah.
It's really important to choose different people at different times. So because everyone will always see something that the other person doesn't. So, yeah, I've used the 3 editors, but we've all seen something different. But they've all contributed to the end product. So it's so important. So when I got all the structural edits done, I was fairly 100% certain I was as close as I was going to get. I engaged Andrea Barton from Brightside Story Studio, and she's here in Australia. I'd done some editing with her previously on short stories because I wanted a local editor that I could call on if I ever needed one. And she answered that call and answered really quickly. And that's what I also love about her is that she will answer you like same day.
Right. Yes.
I'm like, this is my editor. You know? And she did because I was very used to a certain style of editing, particularly from Eleanor and Savannah. I found that Andrea matched their style, and it was just perfect for me.
Yeah.
I said to Andrea when I was doing the short story, I said, "Would you be interested in editing my novel when I get to the end?" And that was about a year before I'd finished. And she said yes. So when I got to the end and I needed that 3rd editor, she was on speed dial,
ready to go.
so she did the line edits for me. And she was just brilliant because we had to cut it down. I think at that stage the novel was 116,000 words. Now this is a debut novel. I had to get it down to around 95,000 if I had any chance of it selling it anywhere. So she worked really hard and managed to get that word count down for me. And then I took, again, because I learned by application, when I saw what she was doing, I think she got it down to 98,000 words, and then I was able to get it down to 96,000 words, and that was what it is now. Yeah. Between the 3 editors, and then we went to Black Hair Press. Once I was done, then we started the querying process, which was horrible. Do you really want to know about that?
Perhaps you could just give us the highlights or the lowlights.
The most soul-destroying experience any writer can ever go through. Oh my goodness, I really didn't enjoy that, and I doubted what I was doing. Even I must have a novel full of query letters and synopsises, and still don't know if I got it right. I was very worried though. I was dealing with people, sending my novel out to people that I didn't know, and who didn't know me. And all I can go on is information on a website saying, yes, we want this type of story. And I got to be honest with you, I was really uncomfortable with that. And maybe I was still holding on to my book too tightly, because you really need to let it go if you want to publish it. But it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. So that's when I started looking closer to home and in my own backyard and within my own circle. And I was just so lucky to find Black Hair Press, which I'd already involved with them because I've sold quite a few little short stories to them. I already knew how they worked, and I could trust them on a lot of levels. Yeah. It just worked. It was actually just a really perfect relationship. So when they said, yes, we love your novel, we want to publish it, it was just the best thing in the world.
Excellent.
Really.
Yeah.
It's just perfect. Yeah. It was just perfect for me. You do get a bit nervous when you don't know who you're dealing with. I do like to know who I'm dealing with.
Yeah,
so,
and that's that trust again, isn't it? That relationship that you talk about through the book is knowing
so I guess trust is a big thing for me too. Yeah. I need to be able to trust who I'm dealing with. I feel I've been really fortunate that a lot of the publishers that I have dealt with over the years, I've developed really good relationships with. I know them, but it's only come through working with them. And that's another thing that writing the short stories has done, is that I have been introduced to quite a range of publishers and other editors, etc., that, I know who they are. and you just know, you get to know them, how they treat you. Yeah, that's a lot. So I have my favourites. Yeah.
Well,
They keep
sounds
getting,
like
they
black
must be
hair
because they keep
precedent.
getting stories from me. So
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask you why you set the story in the US rather than in Australia?
Look, I think that comes from my background of reading, is that I am a big Stephen King fan, of course.
Very good. Yes,
And
of course, being horror.
Yeah, and all his stories are set in America,
Yep.
of course, so that's all I read. I also, when I was really, really young and read a lot of horse stories, because I'm a horse person, everything was set in Britain. So I don't think I've read many stories actually set in Australia, because when I was growing up, there weren't that many. So
There were
almost,
not. No,
they
pretty
weren't.
light on.
The closest, well, look, even again, the horse stories. There was another series I
Silver
wrote,
Brumby series?
The Silver Brumby series was here in Australia. Yes, I've read those.
Yeah.
But the Black Stallion series, which I still have those books, they're all in America, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then all the other horse stories are all in Britain, like in British. I guess I didn't even think that I should write a story set in Australia. It was just natural for me as a writer to set it somewhere overseas.
Yeah, that you were familiar with. Yeah.
Because that's what I was familiar with.
Yeah.
But the other thing as well, so that was okay. That I never even thought twice about it, setting it in America. But when I started writing the short stories, again, a lot of the publishers are over in America. And I found out very quickly that anyone outside of Australia has no clue where Australia is. So if you were to write a story set in Australia and send it to an American publication, they would not understand a word of what you've written. They cannot imagine what Australia is. They all think we're crazy living here with all our dangerous animals,
Well, sometimes I think we are too, but that's
we don't have grizzly bears or lions. I mean,
no,
seriously.
and that's it. We don't have those big horrible ones. No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Cougars,
it was
mountain lions. Let's go on.
Yeah, they can have those. Thank you. I'm quite happy staying here in our deadly Australia.
Yes.
Yeah, as far as writing stories in America, it was more commonplace for me then we set our stories in America, and I just did that pretty much every story I wrote, because otherwise I would not have got them published. Because I think I might have tried once setting a story in Australia. Yeah, this is going back a few years. I was just introduced to the American publishing scene and into the writing scene over there, and I knew more American writers than I did Australian writers. And that was just the way that it flowed. It wasn't until later on, like only the last few years, that I started meeting, or actually it was probably through Twitter and the Oz Rights that actually started meeting and connecting with Australian authors. Okay.
Thanks, Kevin and Beck, for putting that together.
Because up until then, most of my connections were all overseas. So once I started tapping into the Australian scene, then I learned about the Australian Horror Writers Association. I had no idea that existed. I was in the Horror Writers Association, which is America first, before I was in the Australian one. Then I learned about the Shadows Awards, and actually doing the Shadows Awards was really good for me, because then I got to know even more Australian authors. And so I did that just to, let's find out who's here, because I've really got no idea.
Tell us a little about the Shadows Awards.
Oh, look, I love the Shadows Awards. It's an awards for Australian and New Zealand writers in the horror genre, and it's run by the Australian Horror Writers Association each year. And they have various categories. I think there's novel, there's non-fiction, collected fiction, poetry, anthologies, short fiction. Basically just our award for horror writers, which is really good to see. When I joined up as a member with them, because I then put my hand up when they ask for judges I put my hand up, yes, I can have a go. I think the first year I did poetry, and I did poetry because I'd never really looked at poetry before, and I wanted to learn about it. And I got to read some great poetry. And that actually inspired a little bit of a love for poetry. You know, I actually have a lot more respect for poetry than I ever did. So it's everything I do is usually about a learning exercise. So that one introduced me to poetry. This year I've done fiction and collections. The individual collections, where an author will have a collection of horror stories put together. Currently judging that one at the moment, and also the non-fiction. And again, the non-fiction was something that I wasn't very familiar with, and I wanted to learn more about it. So by doing the judging, I've actually learned a lot about these different styles of writing that I wasn't aware of before, and also learned how many awesome authors we have in our country. And we have some cracking authors across the board here. That was really good. I really quite enjoy doing that, although it takes a lot of time. That's a lot of reading.
Yes, because you have to give yourself a little gap in between times so that the stories don't run into each other a little bit.
Yeah, you do. So we've had plenty of time to read them though. So, but look, I just love them. They certainly make it very hard to choose the winner. You wish you could give everyone a trophy because they all deserve it.
Well, and that's right. Sometimes it's just that they're different, not necessarily better or worse than the others, isn't it?
Yeah. And look, it's the awards themselves are great for recognition for authors and writers' efforts to the industry and what they've done for themselves. So it's a really nice little award to have.
Yeah, fantastic.
I've been lucky that I've been a finalist in the Shadows Awards with one of my stories, and that was just such a buzz. I didn't win, of course, so it doesn't matter. It was just such buzz.
Having yourself up there with the finalists is a good achievement. Sure.
So, and as you say, there's usually not a lot between first, second, and third place. There was one that will stand out above everything else, but there's not a lot between the finalists. So, it's a good way to give recognition where it's deserved, I think. Which is always good to see. So I'm quite happy to partake in that and help out where I can.
Excellent. Now, there's one question that I also have to make sure I cover, and there's my segue. How good is the cover of your book? And just talk us through it.
Do you love it?
I absolutely love it. You know, being a health person, you know, I instantly recognise, not that it's not sort of universally recognised these days, but, you know, the ubiquitous DNA strands, it's fantastic, and kind of a little bit of the orbs in the background, just a tickle, and the colours. Love it.
I love the cover. I think it really stands out. Obviously, you want a cover that stands out. I love the font on it. I love that little, it's not just straight.
It's not, and the M is
it's
perfect.
Nice. So we went back and forth with choosing, and this is the best thing as well, working with Black Hair Press, is that I got to have a say in what the cover would be, you know, and help them choose. So they said, okay, what would you like? I gave some ideas, and I was thinking about, I thought, you know, what is the main thing about this story? It's really about that DNA, you know. They say you shouldn't have a picture of a person on front of your cover. There's all these things you shouldn't do when you do a cover. And I definitely wanted black on there as somewhere, but those bright colours with the reds and the blues and then the DNA swirl. I just put that, thought that was good.
Now, what I also like, let me just say one more thing, is when you read the ebook, which is what I had, I was reading it in portrait, and there were three of the characters who I thought, I reckon I know who they are. But then one day I turned my Kindle the other way, and lo and behold, the whole team showed up at the start of every chapter. I thought, there they are. So if you're reading Pauline's book on your Kindle or, you know, whatever, I was reading it on my little Samsung tablet.
Turn it sideways.
Turn it sideways, and you'll see the whole team at the top of every chapter. How good
I've got a great story about that picture.
Okay, tell me all.
Okay. My daughter is an artist. She's not by trade. It's her hobby. but she's very clever with her creating things. And I said to her once, Chriselle, can you please draw my pictures just in silhouette form, because I'd love a poster of them on my wall. Okay. So I told her, I gave her, what they kind of look like and the shapes and whatever, and what I kind of wanted, what I thought of. And then she put together that picture that you see in the ebook version. She also did the picture which is in the book version. So on the inside cover of the paperback, there's an individual silhouette picture of Sarah with a bit of a swirl at the background. And we've done, I think if you notice any of my promotional stuff that I've done around social media, you'll see those silhouette pictures. There's a couple of different varieties out there. They were all created by my daughter.
Very clever, very clever.
And of course, I showed the publisher, didn't I?
Of course you did. And the publisher goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah, they had to have that. So she is actually credited she's in the credits.
That's very good.
Internal images by Chriselle Webb. That's my daughter. So nice to have her actually a part of this as well, to take something that she's helped create and bring my characters to life in art form. Yeah. And I'm always Ada, can you create me some more? Some more,
yeah. Well, yes, my daughter is the same. She works full-time in a completely different industry, but she does the digital design in the weekend. And I say, I just really need to see these characters or this whatever. And she goes, oh, yeah, what is it? And you'll do a few scribbles on the paper, and then, she comes back and it's got, oh, my God, you read my mind. Where did you get that from? The visual artists are just amazing. And with the digital design, it's just so clever.
Yeah,
Cassie.
She's gone. Yeah, she's changed from drawing to painting to using the digital art thing that she has. And just her colour selection and everything that she's put together and all the little bits that she does. It's so special. So I haven't yet got my poster because I've asked her to change the background on one of them. And
right, yes, very good.
But, I will get my poster.
And then you put it behind you when you're on Zoom while you're doing interviews, and people go, "Oh, yes, where'd you get
that?" Well, I'd love to do up posters. I'm doing up little postcard size with all these images on it, with all my information to actually tuck into books so I can add them when I sell them. Yep. And it's also on the bookmarks that I've got her images. So they've been really good.
Oh. I love hearing stories like that. Our families are behind us, aren't they? Yeah.
She was a big inspiration for many of the things in this story. All my children were, actually. I can thank my son. I think he was 4 when I started writing this, and he was quite the adventurous type and loved to, destroy things and knock things down and build his castles. And he actually fueled my love for action and adventure. I do have to thank him for that, because he's boy and he loves that action adventure. And and now he's like going on 16 now, and he will sit with me and we will go on Netflix and find those action adventure movies and just love them. He loves them. So,
Very good, yes. A good balanced diet is what you're giving him?
Absolutely. And there is my other daughters as well. As I said, when I first started writing this book, they were around 18, and I wrote this. One of the reasons why it does lean towards the young adult readership is because I wanted a book for my children to read. Yeah. Brilliant, of course, they've all grown up now, but
but still, that's okay. All right. Now, Pauline, we could talk for hours, but we have books to write, so let's just keep going. Where can people find you on social media? That's the first question.
Okay, well, I have a website. So if you go to paulineyates.com, you will find my website, and that has absolutely everything on there, including where you can buy my books and where you can find me on social media. My main social media channels are Twitter, which is Midnight Muser 1, and on Instagram, which is the same, I think, Midnight Muser 1. You'll also find me on Goodreads, and I'd love it if people followed me on Goodreads and put my book on there to want to read list. That would be good. On BookBub as well is another one. On Facebook, you'll find me on Facebook, although I tend to not use Facebook too much for my book stuff, or I have been a lot more lately, but it's more my website. You follow my website and jump on there, you'll get anything new that comes out. You'll get I think if you follow it, you'll get like any blogs that come out that I happen to do.
Get a notification.
You get an email notification with my new blog out. I don't do too many. I'm too busy doing other things. But whenever something important happens, I'll put it on my website and put it in a blog and send it out. Yeah, so that's pretty much where you'll find me.
Final words for readers. Why should readers pick up a copy of Memories Don't Lie?
If you just want to read a really good story and get sucked into a huge adventure and walk away knowing characters that you wish were alive in real life and right by your side, and you just stay with you forever, and then you can't wait to see what they're going to do next, then Memories Don't Lie.
That's the one for you. And what about a writer? What advice for writers?
I came up with this thing just recently because it's realised it for myself. And the advice is this, and I think I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, because I do forget sometimes. The first draft is just the idea, and editing finds the story.
Yes. Because sometimes we
That is my
agonise over that
catchphrase.
first draft. Yeah, I love it. First draft is the
That is my-
idea. Editing
That
finds
was
the story.
so true for me, because when I first wrote this story and I had a 90,000 word manuscript in my hand, I thought I had a story. What I actually had was an idea, but I didn't realise that until I got to the end of maybe the 5th or 6th rewrite, whatever rewrite this final version is, which I've forgotten. So when I look back, I think, that's why it took me so long, because that was just the idea.
Yeah.
And I needed to go through all that editing, all that rewriting, all that research to find the story, to find who my characters were and find their stories. And then
Brilliant.
I had my story at the end.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice. Yeah.
Good advice. Definitely good advice. I'm not sure if you realise, listeners, that I would recommend this book, but perhaps you've possibly picked that up from the conversation that we've had with Pauline. But definitely get yourself a copy of Memories Don't Lie if you want a fast-paced sci-fi action full of relationships with a little dash of romance, and the team stuff's happening and the military stuff's happening, and there's a little bit of science and genetic engineering and all those things there. So it's got a lot. There's really nothing not to recommend it. Pauline,
that makes me feel so good.
Excellent. And
Thank you.
thanks so much for giving us your time. It's been lovely to chat to you today.
It's been my pleasure. Absolutely.
And you can also find, of course, Memories Don't Lie on the sci-fi page of Australian Book Lovers. Jump on there and have a look. Jump onto Pauline's website and follow her on all the social medias, and keep an eye out for the sequel. So we want to know what Sarah is up to next. Then just
absolutely
stay in touch. All right, that's lovely. Thanks, Pauline. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, Pauline, for a brilliant chat, and we wish you so much luck with your fantastic book, Memories Don't Lie. And Darren, we covered so many things: memories, genetic manipulation. We looked at, relationships and how to overcome, digging deep within yourself to overcome obstacles, and lots of really quirky bits of information about, how clothes, you have to get the average size of clothes for soldiers, and if you're too big or too small, they might not take you. But the sort of serendipity, how it appears when you're writing a book and all of the pieces of the puzzle just connect. But of course, I think you're most interested in the horror.
Well, yeah, look, I am a huge horror fan, and may I just begin by saying, you had so many cool discussions about so many cool topics, and Pauline, thank you, so much. It was a tremendous interview, and I really do thank you for being part of the show, and of course for offering so many cool things to think about. But yeah, horror, I do love horror as amongst other things, but horror means so much, and it can, I think it can be an amazing lens, and for both, from a reader's perspective and from a writer's perspective, to achieve so much, to explore so much, and to expand on things.
And I really I hadn't kind of thought of it before, but, you know, Pauline's comment about the fact that horror takes emotions to the absolute limit and then kind of pushes them off a cliff, you know, if you think about it, which allowed her to write deeply into that particular emotion, which for her, she says, is, you know, allows her to express it, where perhaps it's not something that she would do in the everyday. But it also allowed her to write better emotions in her other work. And it was interesting, you know, I did a bit of a look of the effect of horror novels on the human brain and, you know, the psychology of writing horror and that kind of thing. So before I say what other people, you know, share in some of these online journals, etc., why do you write horror, Darren?
I think it's the unpredictable aspect of it. I think, you know, there's also, and I've mentioned this before, I think there's a timeless quality when it comes to horror. So, for example, you know, a rom-com is going to be very dated, and yet, and I use that as an example, of course, that, you know, not to say that it's not good, a rom-com, because they're fantastic and they serve a great purpose. But, for example, you know, there's something to be said for horror books and even horror movies that, you know, will transcend time. I mean, you know, Dracula, Frankenstein, all these novels, you know, that they're still popular today. And I think there's something about it. I think, you know, and yourself, you just mentioned it, and Pauline's discussion mentioned about the extreme of emotion. And, you know, for example, writing, you know, from an author's perspective, writing a short horror story is a really cool exercise because there's no real room for a backstory for a character. So you have to sort of build that backstory in, sometimes via emotions and maybe some, you know, some. So not only do you have to try and create a character that is, you know, rich on paper without that ability to spend pages with a backstory, but also put that character or that person in a situation that will heighten emotions to, you know, 11, so to speak, to use Spinal Tap's quote, and let the reader, I guess, engage with that, and so feel those emotions, and maybe, you know, through that lens of the book, step into waters where they can explore emotions that they would hope to never have to face or experience in real life, but that ability to do that. And so, you know, from a writing perspective, what a cool approach to attempt to take and to explore. But that's the other thing I think about horror is also, realistically, it's survival. It's you know, how much do we love life to the point with what will we do to try and survive? I think ultimately for me that's what horror is. I mean, everyone's got their own perspective, but you know, I love the fact that horror is realistically about, you know, facing terror and, you know, doing what you can, finding ways to conquer that terror and to get to the other side. Yeah,
as Pauline was saying, to dig deep and be able to, you know, find something within yourself. Yeah. Okay, so the effect of horror novels on the human brain, and I'm reading Horror Tree and a guest post which was published on October 30, 2021. So the effects of horror novels on the human brain. Horror, in case anybody doesn't know, genre of literature dedicated to creating a sense of fear in the reader. And they asked the question, are horror novels good for the brain? Now, I know you're going to say yes, but if so, in what ways do they affect the brain positively? So studies have shown that reading has many benefits, of course, exercises the imagination and increases empathy and self-awareness, and also that it can help memory and concentration. And a number of medical professionals suggest that reading books is better for your mental health than watching TV or playing video games, because there's no sensory input from sight or sound, and that can desensitize people to violence and suffering. So horror novels can exercise the reader's imagination, and studies have shown that they're fascinated by things rather than repulsed, which is, you know, a primitive fascination with death and violence. So here's some dot points. Exposing readers to alternative perspective. These are some of the helpful things. It exposes readers to alternative perspectives and worldviews that can expand the imagination and increase empathy. This way, reading horror novels can help with cognitive development and cultural understanding. They can create new neural pathways in the brain that will help improve memory and imagination, because reading the same material over and over again is known to create different neural pathways in the brain, which leads to better memory, imagination, and problem solving. So when I step out of reading sci-fi and fantasy, this is telling me it's good for my brain. Number 3, we can exercise the imagination and improve memory and concentration, of course. Number 4, promotes self-awareness of how we think, feel and act. So they share a lot in common with movies, in that horror authors can learn from horror movies and aware of how our brains react to fear and violence by watching a horror movie or reading horror stories. Help us be empathetic towards others. Although sometimes I feel like saying, have you not read the script? Do you not know that you don't go down to the basement on your own? Don't split up. No, don't split up. Anyway, that's me. Can increase empathy. People often feel less pain when they see others experiencing it as well. This is because we could process the emotions of those around us more easily than our own, making it easy to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and empathize with them. Therefore, reading horror novels with violent and disturbing scenes may help people empathise with those who are suffering.
None of that, yeah, but it's also depending on the type of horror. I mean, obviously that covers just an enormous spectrum. But for example, maybe shall we call realistic horror in the sense of murder-based horror? It can be educational in the sense of we read so much to learn from others' experience, and often, or we can learn just in general in life through life experiences. At some point, we will do certain things that everybody does as certain things. Learn how to make a cup of coffee. Someone will teach you different ways of coffee. For many of us, there's the opportunity to fall in love, but we can read about love prior to and since then. But somebody following you on a dark night with a knife, that's something you're not going to experience in real life.
No.
And may not know anybody personally. I know some might, but in general, you're not going to know somebody who's had to face that dilemma. And there's that element of education that can come from reading from the protagonist's point of view, what that feels like, what options are available, what choices can be made.
Building their problem-solving skills under pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I liked what you said was the neural pathways. And I think, horror and science fiction especially, and look, my feeling is that all genres can assist with neural pathways 100%, but with horror I think you've got those two sort of elements. You've got, if I use a music analogy, you've got your top 40 hits, which who doesn't love a good top 40 hit regardless, but it's a song that feels familiar. It has a structure, verse, chorus, bridge thing, outro sort of thing. But it can there's still wonderful and magical things to be done within that format. But then you've got your symphony, which I think is a different process because your brain, it has no grounding to follow. So therefore there's that greater sense of freedom when you're listening to it because you don't know what's coming next. There's no predictability. Your brain doesn't have that format. When you're listening to a radio song, you know how it's going to go. And I think horror can really be that. It's like a symphony because unless it's, a vampire or a zombie book, but they're your top 40 hits. There are so many wonderful horror books out there that will delve into, stories and scenarios that you just, are just unbelievable. And, once you're sort of in there, you've got no idea what's going to happen. And I mean, like any good story, but throw in these, unique circumstances that you don't have any grounding in reality to use as some form of reflection. You're really stepping into sometimes new emotional territories too. And I think that brings a little bit more glitter to the neural pathways. But that I could be biased as well.
You could be
and
just a little bit biased, but that's all right. Now,
Yeah.
I was quoting from Elizabeth Sadler from Horror Tree, but I also want to mention some bits and pieces by Alex J. Coyne on the psychology of writing horror. And please note that Pauline's book, go and look up all her horror stories, but the book that she did talk about, of course, it's science fiction with some horror elements. So let's just go on. Anyway, writing horror. So, of course, people read scary books for the same reason they read any fiction, says psychologist and writer Maria Florencia Lister, all the way from Argentina, because they want to experience vicarious emotions, as we've just said. So all of those things about writing, and just have to be careful about that sort of, fear pushed too far. But the research that says that the kind of non-real experiences and dreams and imagination are processed by the same circuits in the brain that processes reality. And I think we've spoken about this before, which I think is just absolutely fascinating. And then she goes on to say, learning to write horror. So this is under refiction.com articles, The Psychology of Writing Horror. Have a look at that. And she's got, here's how to get a handle on horror, a few more things that you should keep in mind as a writer. So as well as following some good horror writers and, Pauline Yates and Allan Baxter, two good Australian ones to follow, as well as the fabulous, I'm sure you're going to say Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft, but I'll leave that to you. 4 dot points. 1, know your market. You should always know what market you're writing for, and you should get to know your readership well. Research your readers. If you're writing horror for children, there are certain lines that you can't afford to cross. You do not want to take the blame for psychologically scarring a young child forever, but, let's talk about that another day. Number 2, it's not about gore. Gore can be scary, but gore can also be overdone. Understanding the line between what's called torture porn and horror, and never cross that line, or you'll end up putting your readers off. It could have been a great story, but underneath the river of blood. Create fear. What scares you? So when writing horror or describing something terrifying, you should always remember your own experiences when putting it down on paper. Remember a moment where you've been scared, terrified, or uneasy, and convey the same feeling to your reader. In this aspect, you're trying to channel a very ancient emotion, not just to write the scary story. And of course, number 4, writing atmosphere. And Alex firmly believes that horror writers, whether they're written for the page or screen, should create an atmosphere of terror, or at least the very uneasiness when they sit down to write. If the scene scares you, then you know damn well it's going to be scary for your readers. Do what works. Scary music, candles, writing with the lights off. If you want to scare a reader, you have to scare yourself first. So, Darren, do you write with the lights off or scare yourself first when you are writing horror?
I do usually write with the lights off. So
Yep.
obviously there's a source of light, but I do like the atmosphere of the lamp, absolutely.
There you go.
And that whole idea of, I guess that's same as sitting around a campfire telling the horror stories, because
Yep.
the light only goes so far, so then you allow the surrounding darkness to be full of imagination and opportunities.
Yeah.
So, but absolutely stuff that frightens me is obviously a big source of inspiration for writing, of course. And of course it's not spooky ooky things that scare me. For me, horror is different things. Psychological horror, or it can be psychopathic behaviours in society that I have to treat as normal. All sorts of things can be horror, and so there's definitely plenty of fuel there. But some really great points that you've brought up.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a little bit about horror, but please, have a look at Pauline Yates' beautiful, and the cover. I just absolutely love the cover of her Memories Don't Lie, and that is available on the sci-fi page of Australian Book Lovers. Now, if you would like to have a chat with us on the podcast, you have to list your book on the website. Jump onto australianbooklovers.com/for authors, and you can send poetry in, you can send short stories, you can list your book for free, and then we do have a little bit of a waiting list because people love to chat about their books, but you can come on the podcast. And don't forget giveaways. I'm about to allocate the last lot of books to give away, 2 from Laurie Bell and 1 from David Cohen. And we have got 2 new ones for the next newsletter. So please jump on to booklovers.com/booklovers and subscribe to the newsletter, because that's pretty special. Nobody else gets access to the books. Go, Darren, over to you.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a fascinating dive down the rabbit hole of the effects of horror on the human brain and all those kind of things. So there you go.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do a deep dive soon. Obviously, one of my deep dive into horror and sci-fi, but
we might
nonetheless,
need a horror special.
Yeah, absolutely. But for now, I think why don't we? Well, we're getting close to all the cool ending parts of the show, but first, what about if we enjoy a adult beverage in the Writers' Lounge?
Indeed, we should. Okay.
Ooh, okay, because I'm all excited about horror now, so I'm going to think about a groovy drink to have in there, but I shall meet you in there.
Beautiful. See you there. So book lovers, here we are in the Writers' Lounge. It is a chilly afternoon where I am, so I'm choosing to head down to a lounge that's in Wurundjeri land, and I'm thinking I'm going to go for a nice heavy-bodied Shiraz because I need warming up. But I have with me a very special guest because Darren is not here, so we've snuck in a quick visit with Jess Kitching. Hello, Jess.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You are most welcome. So what does the Writers' Lounge look like up your way?
Oh, I've decided I'm at a rooftop bar. I think,
nice.
I finished writing my 3rd book. This is what we're here to talk about. So I'm like, I deserve some rooftop bar cocktails and celebrations.
Excellent. Yeah, so what's your favourite cocktail?
I'm going to go and say it's very stereotypical, but I really like a cosmopolitan. I feel like, I watched Sex and the City when I was like 15 and thought, this is going to be my identity now.
That is my future. I see it.
Yeah. I was like, I can have cosmos in big cool cities in the world. This sounds great. So maybe tonight I'm feeling a gin and tonic,
Yeah. I do like a gin and tonic. Generally for the summer, and of course it's freezing down here in Melbourne. But whose land are you on up there, Jess?
I'm on the land of the Gadigal people.
Yeah, okay. I was talking to my niece was up there and she said it was 20. So yeah, I'm sure a rooftop garden would be absolutely fine.
Not quite as cold as where you are.
So let's leave the weather and go on to book number 3, which is absolutely fantastic. So lucky number 11 is in fact lucky number 3 for you.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Hopefully it's lucky. But yeah, definitely number 3. I can't believe it's the first book.
Yeah, and look, it feels like it was ages ago that we talked to you, but we've just put your episode out, and so here we are sneaking that little bit extra. We sort of previewed that you would have a third one coming, and lo and behold, it is just hammering through all the processes. And let me read for the listeners what the blurb is for lucky number 11. When Hannah Allan was 14 years old, she was abducted by an elusive serial killer, Peter Harris. Intended to be his 11th victim, she was his only survivor. 10 years later, therapy and friendship have helped Hannah overcome the trauma of her past. But then a body is found, a body bearing eerily similar injuries to Peter's victims, complete with the numerical brand he forced upon his captives. Soon it becomes clear that somewhere, someone is continuing Peter's work. Somewhere, someone wants Hannah dead. Can she survive a serial killer twice, or has her luck finally run out? Whoa, there you go.
Yeah, I was like,
definitely that. And this is going to be published on the 25th of August. So there's a pre-order link, and we will have that absolutely on the website so that you can jump on to lucky number 11. Of course, it's going to be in the mystery thriller page, and there'll be a pre-order link there. Or you can go onto Jess's website and do the pre-order from jesskitchingwrites.com. Well, Jess, how does it feel to have 3 books? I'm just going to say out there because they're so close.
Yeah, it's pretty much out there now. It's very exciting. I think, when you're the kid that always dreams of being an author and then it happens, I think I'm still pinching myself. But then I think how tired I am from spending so many days on a laptop, but I'm like, only 3 are out? I feel like 400 should be. Definitely a great feeling. Yeah,
if it was reward for effort, it would definitely be 400.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is still a little dark, let's say. So you're still in that kind of psychological thriller that is the one that floats your boat at the moment. So how long has this story been sort of in the making?
This story's actually been on my mind, or like elements of this story has actually been on my mind for a fair few years. Probably more than any other book that I've written. I've kind of been working on this and thinking about it. It's hard sometimes, when you have the idea to kind of commit, especially with a darker story, because it's quite a dark headspace to be in. So I feel like it's one that I've dipped in and out of. But then when I kind of focused and committed to it, I probably got it out in a few months. But definitely, it's a few years in the making, this one, I would say.
Yeah, very good. Now, we had a lovely chat. We had an interesting chat about revenge and the psychology of revenge after we'd finished talking about book number 2, which was How to Destroy Your Husband. Again, very cheery books. And the first book, your first book was The Girl She Was Before. Yeah. Where does that kind of thread take us in lucky number 11? So not revenge. What is the thread, or what are we looking for in lucky number 11? Without giving spoilers, of course. Please don't give spoilers. Yep.
It's my hardest thing to not just spoil the ending every time, but I will do my best. So lucky number 11 is similar in a few ways, in that it's kind of a female protagonist, and we centre around kind of her psychological journey through an experience, but it is completely different to the other 2. So Hannah Allan, as you mentioned in the blurb, when she was 14, she was abducted by a serial killer, and she was supposed to be his 11th victim, and because she survived, the press nicknamed her lucky number 11. And it's kind of it's a badge that she wears. It's got a lot of weight to it. So people kind of assume that they know her story and assume that they know a lot about her, but she's, you know, battled for 10 years to get to a point where she feels kind of almost she's dealt with that trauma, and then a kind of a copycat serial killer happens at the same time as a launch of a book that details what happened in those crimes. So for Hannah, just as she feels like she's, you know, ready to just be Hannah, not Lucky Number 11, everything happens to bring this trauma back to her. So we follow her through kind of that experience, and it's quite a difficult experience at points, as you can imagine. Someone who's survived a serial killer being faced with that again is obviously a difficult thing to process. So it's definitely got some of the darker roots that some of my other stories do. We touch upon like social media and different things like that, but more crime fiction, I guess. Crime and thriller in this one. It definitely gets dark.
So yeah, it's and a little horror, I guess, is the thing, and that's where the grey, you know, or black area lies, in that sometimes thrillers and psychological thrillers, you know, slide into some of those elements that are fairly horrific, but you know, horror writers often will, of course, add the supernatural and that kind of thing as well. Yeah. So what is the direction after this? You know, I mean, Lucky Number 11 is your third psychological thriller.
Yeah.
What's next on your slate?
So I'm currently writing my fourth book at the minute. It's crazy, isn't it? You're like talking about book 3. That's coming out soon. Writing book 4, planning book 5.
Yeah.
So always on the go. But number 4 will still be in the thriller genre, just slightly different. Number 4 is going to be more a missing person story. So not quite a serial killer this time. So, you know, is that a little bit lighthearted? I'm not sure. It will definitely have some twists and turns in there, like Lucky Number 11 does.
Yeah, very good. Now, just where can people pick up a copy of Lucky Number 11? We've said the Australian Book Club's website and, of course, your website, but where is there? What if they wanted to have a signed copy? Are you launching anywhere?
Yeah, so I'm very excited. I personally sell signed copies myself, so if anybody wants to kind of reach out, I can do personalised messages and things like that for all my books. So always through my website, you can reach out. But then also I'll be doing a launch in Canberra, and I'll be doing a launch in Sydney, and I'm in the planning stages of doing a launch event in Melbourne. So quite a lot of exciting things going on.
Yes, yeah, fantastic.
But I'm going to head down to Melbourne for the Sisters in Crime Davitt Awards. So I was like, perfect.
Lovely.
I can tie it all in and have a nice walk around there. So hopefully I'll be able to meet some Melbourne readers this time too.
Indeed. So when are the Davitt Awards on?
I think it's the 2nd of September.
Okay, so early September.
Like a week after the launch.
Very good. Oh, that will be perfect.
Yeah, it's such good timing. I was like, fate has worked out with this.
A whole room full of women talking about how to kill people. I can't imagine anything more horrifying.
Yeah, swapping tips.
Oh, have you tried this poison? Yeah. But the women, Australian women's writing in this genre is just going from strength to strength. There's so many good writers, and of course, you know, some who've been around for quite a long time. I've just finished reading Jane Harper's The Dry, which I thought, oh yeah, I'll just get that quickly from the library because I needed one while I was volunteering at a place that was going to have a bit of downtime, and that was fantastic. I thought, oh, that's right, you know, a lot of people out there. I've been reading Candice Fox, and we've had yourself, we've got Ashley Kalajian Blunt, Danuka McKenzie, Petronella McGovern, you know, it goes on and on. There's a great depth of Australian women writing mystery, murder and psychological thrillers.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really exciting time to be writing in this genre as well, and like seeing just different people's books and having read them, just being in awe of like their imagination and talent. I feel like it's a really, really exciting time to be a woman writing in this genre in Australia.
Yeah, and I can see why so many of these books are in airport libraries and those kind of things, because they are such page turners. Before you know, 14 hours is gone on the flight and you're wishing you'd bought book 2. But the page turner, I think, and the ability of a thriller to draw you into that world, dark or light or mixed as it may be, it's incredibly helpful and very nice for readers.
Yeah, definitely. I think with like Lucky Number 11, it was one of the reasons I wanted to write about a serial killer, because there's such fascination about them. But I always feel like the victim is the more important story. You know, I think sometimes we almost make these serial killers like superhuman and things. Like actually what they've done is a really horrible thing. I don't want to focus my attention on that person. I want to think about, you know, the survivor and what they've done, and like how incredible it is that they've kind of what's happened to them afterwards, and how they've managed to adapt and overcome these things that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. So for me, writing in this genre is interesting, and using certain tropes and things that are out there that people are interested in, like a serial killer story, and kind of giving it that twist of it being about the person, the victim, you know, and that side of the story. That was really important to me, and I think there's a lot of female crime writers that are doing things like that at the minute, that are looking at situations and taking it from a different angle, and kind of, instead of it just being one person's perspective you see, drawing it onto the side that's a bit more, I'd say, human.
Yeah, and I think also coming from the woman's point of view, it just does put a twist on it. Even though, as I just said, I was reading Jane Harper's book The Dry, in which she's presenting from her detectives or agent's point of view, but it is that human side. I think that's what a lot of writers are bringing to, you know, as you say, look at the victim, you know, look through the eyes of a, you know, detective. I loved Anuka Mackenzie's Kate, I can't think what Kate's last name is, but her detective who is in the country town, and it just feels very relatable at the moment. Yeah,
I agree. I think it's making like often you have like the victim's just like a faceless, nameless person in a book. Like Lucky Number 11, you know, she's a number. She's literally branded with a number, and that is her thing. Whereas, you know, I wanted to, like you say, add the human, add the person to that, and make you realise, or make you think, you know, it's not just a person on the front of a paper. That's a person that, I don't know, had a best friend when they were 7, and that dream and different things like that. So I definitely think you're right. There are so many women adding like layers to detectives and different people in stories that you might not have traditionally seen, and it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, it's good. And of course, if people want to get Lucky Number 11, as we say, jump onto Jess's website, which is jesskitchingwrites.com, and you'll also find it, I'm sure, on all the links of all good bookstores. So who is this one published with, Jess?
So this is published with Kingsley Publishers. So they're the publisher who've done my first 3 books, and it's very exciting. This is the first audio book, so I've signed with Green World Audio. So
lovely.
They're putting the first, I think it's the 25th of August as well. Yeah, it comes out on audiobook as well. And then my other book, my back catalogue of books, they're going to come out as well. So
that is brilliant. Do you know, can you share who your narrator is?
I can't yet, I'm so sorry. But as soon as I can, I will pass it.
That's okay, no, because that is important for audiobooks as to who does share it. Now, is Lucky Number 11, where is it set?
So this one's actually set in England, because it's like in the north of England, so maybe not as strong an accent as I have, but it will definitely be someone from the UK, just because I feel like when I was writing it, one, that's where I pictured it, but also there'd been a few kind of similar crimes and things in the UK in recent years and things like that, so I felt I did a lot of my research around things like that, so it definitely heavily inspired my research and then in turn my writing.
Beautiful. Okay, as long as it's not midsummer, of course, because nobody wants to live there, because they get a murder every week, you know, which is just hideous.
No, definitely not. It's definitely an urban, gritty city centre. No Paul village where everybody dies.
I know, it's like, really, people? We're going to have another death. Anyway, it's all
People
good.
still buying houses in that place?
Yes. Oh, this one's cheap. It's only had 2 murders this week. Right, okay.
What a bargain.
Oh, definitely a bargain. All right, now, Jess, where can people find you online if they want to track where you're up to and look at dates for launches and those kind of things?
Yeah, so like I say, you've mentioned my website. My website's a good place to go, but I think I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. So if you search Jess Kitching Writes, my profile should come up somewhere near the top. So I'll be on there. I'm also on Twitter under Jess Kitching, but not as interactive on Twitter, shall we say, but Instagram and Facebook, most definitely always up for a chat.
Beautiful. All right. And Jess definitely is up for a chat. There's a lot of twos and fro's go on Instagram. I will just say that. Yeah, she's very good at keeping the conversation flowing. So, Jess, thanks for dropping into the lounge. How's your cocktail? Have you finished that?
Yeah, I mean, I've ordered another.
Oh, she's settling in. Well, I might have to leave you to enjoy the slightly warmer country up there, Gadigal country, and I'm going to stay. I'm going to just perhaps polish off the last of my Shiraz and hope that the fire is on when I leave the lounge.
Oh, beautiful. Sounds like. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and good luck with lucky number 11.
Thank you.
Bye.
Meanwhile, in another bar, in another city, in another state.
Would you like another Bloody Mary?
You know what? Yeah, I'll have another Bloody Mary. Just waiting for some friends, so why not? Might as well have another drink.
I'm not sure if you've noticed, but this bar is pretty empty. As in, you're the only person here at the moment.
That's a really good point. You know what? I've got a feeling that maybe I've mucked up. Maybe I'm in the wrong bar at the wrong time.
You know what? I think you might be right. So how about I pour you another drink and put on the Australian Book Lovers podcast, and maybe next time you'll find the right bar.
Oh, well, not the first time I've made a fool of myself, so yeah, pour another drink and I'll sit here on my lonesome and listen to the show, and then I might pop out and see if I can find them. All right, a little bit tipsy after that little visit in the Writers' Lounge, but if I wasn't, then I'd be feeling like I got ripped off at the bar.
All right, time for some quotes, Darren, and I've got one which is about emotions.
Ooh.
And it is by Susan David, who is an award-winning Harvard Medical School psychologist and been named one of the world's most influential management thinkers. She has got a fabulous TED Talk, which people can have a bit of a look at. But basically, I really like this quote, which is, "We generate the pathway to our best selves through our emotions."
A bit to unravel there. Generate the pathway to our best selves, through emotions.
Through our emotions. So finding your best self through your emotions. Yeah. Okay. So worth having a little listen to her TED Talk as well. Yeah,
it's interesting. I've always kind of imagined that it's coming to understand and also to harness our emotions, because I know emotions can sort of be like a wild horse, can't they? Take off and bucking, and there's no way in hell you're controlling them. And
now, it could still be your best self at the end of that bucking horse, though.
I don't know. I've done a few crazy things when my emotions got out of control, and I'm sure I'm not alone there. But no, that's a good quote.
Yeah. Okay. What have you got for us?
Well, can I break the rules for episode 85?
Go on then.
Only because it's a little bit of a horror special. We're talking a little bit about fear. Right. And the echidnas are becoming cool. So, in all celebration, I wanted to sneak 3 in.
3?
Yeah, because they all kind of tie into each other.
All right. Well, then I get 3 next time.
Absolutely. So these are 3, obviously, separate quotes, but I thought they come together nicely. So my quotes are based kind of on fear, I guess. And the first one is from Theodore Roosevelt. A bit of a long one, but I think it's really cool. And the quote is, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." Theodore Roosevelt. So I like that.
That is
in the
a
sense
good one.
of facing your fear. And
I've heard that one. You've got to be in the arena to be in it. Yeah, for sure. Daring greatly. Love it. Yep. What else?
So the next one, they get shorter from now. The next one is from Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, and this reads as follows: "Fear keeps us focused on the past or worried about the future. If we can acknowledge our fear, we can realise that right now we are okay. Right now, today, we are still alive, and our bodies are working marvellously. Our eyes can still see the beautiful sky. Our ears can still hear the voices of our loved ones. So I think that's this goes a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit wishy-washy, but it does go to how fear can help us appreciate the moment. I suppose. I don't mind that.
Yeah, I don't know about marvellously though. I just balked a little bit at that. Maybe my eyes and my ears are working, but my hips are just not doing such a good job these days. So I'd say.
But Zen Master might say, but if it is working, it is marvellous.
Barely
if
working.
If it is not working at all, you cannot know marvel.
No, I'm contemplating a walking stick. But anyway, hit me with the cheery third one. Yep, go.
All right, I love this one. This is from one of my favourite artists of all time, none other than Mr. Salvador Dali. Here we go. So after those 2 quotes of fear, this is a good little finish. Have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. I wonder if that why he had so many of his things melting off benches and things.
I don't know. That had something to the secret ingredient in his tea, maybe.
There you go.
So
very good.
So episode 85. It's been a wonderful time. And,
it has, and there's still a reading. You've got, but stay tuned. We've got a quick blog tip from the fabulous KM Allan, who was an inspiration to Pauline, of course, and does so many good things. People are more than just their words. And Pauline reads the first chapter of Memories Don't Lie. So stay tuned after we've signed off with something, with our tagline. What have you got for us, Darren?
Well, yeah, but like you said, definitely stay tuned because we've got that excellent reading and a couple of things still coming. But of course, it's our exit because we're going to let the real cool people take over. But I was thinking, let's lighten things up a little bit. We mentioned a bit of horror and stuff, but maybe we can be like spooky, ooky ghosts. Going,
spooky, ooky ghosts, all right.
And then we could be like haunting, telling people to read books.
Okay.
What do you think? We can do that?
Give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. As you know, we're happy to try anything, and perfection is far, far from our bailiwick. Yep.
Because we have no fear of perfection.
We have no fear of perfection.
Perfection definitely has no fear of us.
Yes,
okay,
indeed.
listeners. Right. Okay, so step with us into a haunted house.
Don't forget. Yes, don't forget.
You must read more of the books. Now take the candle and write your name in the pentagram.
Don't go into the dark.
Come and see me. I'm in the basement.
Very spooky. I'd get some chains rattling there, and we could absolutely sell that for sure.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I'm a good ghost. No, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for episode 5. We've got some super surprises coming up in the next couple of episodes. Still got super surprise coming up very shortly with a fantastic, very, shall we say, hot off the press reading, a very exclusive reading. So really, really appreciative of that. So keep listening. We're out of here, but we will join you for episode 86. Thank you so much, everybody.
Take care. And bye for now. Hello, book lovers. Very happy to say we have with us again our fabulous YA author and blogger, KM Allan. Now, Kate is the author of the Blackbird series, The Beginning, The Dark Half and The Ritual, and of course the final one of the series coming out, we hope very soon. Welcome, Kate.
Hello.
How are you this fine, rainy Melbourne morning?
I know, it was very rainy this morning, wasn't it?
It was kind of weird. And, it's supposed to be 24 and the dogs went off because it was thunder and lightning, and it's now sunny again. So typical Melbourne.
My cats were the same. They were running around trying to find somewhere to hide. So.
Yeah, they just don't like that thunder. Not good. But that's not why we're here. We are here to tap into your expert writing and blogging brain and get your top tip for the day. What have you got for us this week?
Well, this time we're talking about a little details checklist.
Very good. So tell us about that.
Okay, well, that's basically where, sure, when you're writing a book, there's always lots of little details that you got to put in there that you sort of forget about and get lost in the rest of the plot as you're going along.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously there's those sorts of things you've got to sort of keep track of because it's important, because, you know, it sort of fills out your book world and all that sort of stuff. So I find the easiest way to keep track of most things is with a checklist.
And what kind of things would be on the checklist?
Well, obviously you could make up your own checklist to see what would make sense for you and your book. But for this blog post in particular, I put together sort of 7 sort of little checklist details to keep track of.
Very good. So, yep. Give us a hint for one.
Yep. Well, the first one of that would be unanswered questions.
Ah, yes. They can be really annoying if you get to the end of the book and go, yeah, but what happened to such and such? Or what about the, you know, the spell that went awry, or the dragon that was left tied up, or
exactly. And it's true, when you're writing, you do sort of forget some of those sort of things, and then you get to the end, and then exactly people are going to say, well, what happened to this, what happened to that? So if you have this checklist, you sort of write down, okay, I've got to remember by the end of this book I need to have answered this question.
Yes, most definitely. So 7 fabulous ideas, and they can find that on your blog, which is at
kmallan.com.
Excellent. Sorry, I'm just having a little sip of water because despite my having not had the flu for about 5 or 6 weeks, still have that tickly throat. So I am just swallowing down a little drip of chai tea, and I know that you actually are fueled by green tea and chocolate.
Yes, I love a good cup of green tea. Very nice.
So what is your favourite chocolate?
I like dark chocolate, actually.
Ah, yes. So 70% or something even darker?
No, probably not something darker. Yeah, 70% would be
70% pretty good. Yeah. I have to admit to hankering for Lindt balls, and the dark chocolate Lindt balls are very nice. I do like those.
I also like anything that has mint in it. So.
Ah, okay. All right. So we could persuade you with mint. Makes sense. All right, people. So there you have it, a list of forgotten things and things that you need to remember, particularly as a good example, stuff that you need to finish off, close the loops, feedback loops, conversation loops, action loops, all of those kind of things. Excellent. Thanks, Kate. We shall see you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Pauline Yates, author of Memories That Lie, and I'd like to read to you the opening pages. Chapter 1. Don't let him find her. My dead mother's desperate plea takes my thoughts hostage, shattering my composure and threatening the freedom I long for. Why am I remembering this when nothing's happened in the last 13 years? All my focus needs to be on passing my final sharpshooting assessment. The cryptic recollection should be the last thing on my mind. Irritated at the intrusion, I block out her voice and pace around my barracks room as if running the course. A win will earn me the Tactical Skill Program's top graduate title, and I'm determined to claim it. It's the only way to show Marek Daniels I'd be perfect for his CSR team. His crime-fighting unit is the best, and his vacant position unprecedented. I'll never get another chance, but the memory continues to haunt me. Damn my mother. Civilian safety response soldiers are supposed to have nerves of steel. We could assist local law enforcement in anything from hostage situations to firearm offences to bomb threats. I'm a day away from graduating, and my nerves have shot through the roof. How can I expect to fight crime if I can't arrest my anxiety? Frustrated, I give the memory attention it doesn't deserve so I can bury it with my mother. It was the last thing she said to my uncle before the door closed, shutting her out of my life forever. She didn't mention who or why. I assume she referred to my unknown father, although what he'd want is beyond me. He hasn't shown his face in my 17 years of existence. I'd be lying if I said not having a father doesn't bother me. But after losing my mother, any resemblance to a normal life stopped. Instead of Sarah, I became known as the orphaned niece of Lieutenant John Wilson, which meant no friends, private tutors, and around-the-clock security. The only places I frequented outside the house were my uncle's office, here at Red Bluff Military Base, a measly 20-minute drive from our neighbourhood, or a private indoor shooting range on the outskirts of Reading with my minders. I couldn't even shop for personal supplies without an escort. I never complained, never questioned, but now I'm older, my patience with my uncle's control over my life has worn thin. He's the only family I have, and there's an uncomfortable distance between us, like I'm an unwanted house guest. I'm certain that's why he insisted I sign up for this program. Once I graduate and get placed on a team, I'll move out of home permanently. I jump at a rap on the door. It will be my trainer, Staff Sergeant Darius Kingsley. He's arrived too early to collect me. Growing angrier by the second at how frazzled my nerves are, I yank the door open, only to be knocked aside by Darius, who barges in. Whatever's happened won't be good. What's wrong? I mask my churning emotions with indifference. But Darius pulls off his sunglasses and frowns. He knows me too well. They brought forward your start time, he says. Nixon's out with a fractured hand. Boyd's in hospital wing after ingesting a banned substance. Gorsini's on the course. Let's go. Motioning for me to follow, he jams his sunglasses back on and strides from the room. I'm glad he spared me a lecture about emotional flare-ups during final week, but rising anger displaces my anxiety. Intimidation tactics between cadets are normal at any stage of the training program, but Gorsini has done more than make idle threats. He deliberately stomped on Nixon's hand during their comparative assessment yesterday, and then started a rumour about Boyd using performance drugs to boost his stamina, an unfounded allegation. Boyd's as clean as me. Catching up to Darius, I jumped down the stairs with him. Did Gorsini slip something to Boyd? If he did, we'll never prove it, Darius says, taking the path around the northern end of my barracks, the quickest route to the outdoor range. I grit my teeth. Gorsini is another distraction I don't need. We should have reported his threat to me. Darius grimaces. I did. You, of all people, should know how it works in this program. Get tough or get out. There'll be no one left to graduate if Gorsini has his way. I don't like it either, but better to discover a weakness here at Red Bluff than on the streets in Sacramento. Nixon and Boyd knew Gorsini would do his damnedest to take them out of contention, but overconfidence made them complacent. As for Gorsini, Darius clenches his jaw. If he claims the top graduate title, I'll hand him my resignation. That can never happen, sir. I'll make sure it doesn't. Darius resigning would be Red Bluff's loss. He's old enough to be my father, but as tough as they come. I've never told him, but I want to be as skilled as him, so I'm ready for whoever wants to find me should they ever show their face. I trust that I am. Darius trains his cadets like elite athletes, and his method of incorporating resistance, plyometric, and continuous training over Red Bluff's variety of terrain has produced multiple top graduates, including Merrick. My pulse quickens thinking about him. He won't accept anyone less than the best, even if we share the same trainer. Trying to join his team might be like trying to punch through a brick wall. I walk on, but Darius grabs my arm and pulls me to a stop. Do better than your best. No holding back. Not today. And watch out for Gorsini. This isn't over yet. He lowers his glasses, looks me straight in the eye for emphasis, then continues along the path. I smile. Do my best. No holding back. Gladly. Throughout my training, Darius had me hide my skills to mislead the other cadets. Our ruse protected me against attacks from Gorsini until yesterday's competitive assessment. I won every round, annihilating my opponents with manoeuvres that could have put them in the hospital wing with Nixon. Darius raged, saying I painted a target on my back, proven right when Gorsini cornered me in the gym and threatened to break my shooting hand. Secretly, I don't care. For the past 6 months, I've done what Darius asked, kept my points low and stayed out of the spotlight. What he doesn't know is that when my adrenaline starts pumping, it wakes something predatory inside me, making it difficult to ignore a challenge. On multiple occasions, I had to sneak into the gym late at night for an extra workout just to wind down. Adding to my frustration, I found the program easy, despite Red Bluff's claiming it's one of the toughest courses in the military. It's like I've done every aspect of their training before. I have, in theory, because of my uncle's CSR supervisory role. I know the program and understand team expectations. Darius says I'm a natural and that CSR is what I was born for. I hope I prove him right today. I catch up to Darius at the end of the path and we stride past the engineering sheds, refurbished aircraft hangars from Red Bluff's days as an air defence command station. They run alongside the airstrip, now training fields, ending in a mesh fence surrounding the outdoor range. The sheds are usually a hive of activity, but the sharpshooting rounds are prime-time entertainment for Red Bluff personnel and everyone is at the range. When we reach the entrance, Darius approaches the MP on gate duty. Is Orsini on course? Yes, sir, the MP says, 7 targets in. Darius continues through the gates, quickening his pace. I jog to keep up. The soldiers milling around inside stare at me. Usually I'm the unremarkable cadet destined to ruin Darius's track record in producing top graduates. Not now. After my spectacular combative performance, this new attention stirs up my nerves again. With Boyd and Nixon out, the spotlight will be on me. Another pressure I hadn't expected. Darius lifts a rope separating the spectators from the course. We duck under it together and stride across the sun-baked field to the armament bench near the start of the sharpshooting course. A cliff forms a natural wall around the target practice area and the granite radiates late summer heat. Bullet marks pepper the cliff base, some of them mine. Darius had me shoot wide on purpose during group sessions. I won't shoot wide today. I pull my half gloves from my leg pockets of my pants and jam the soft leather deep into the grooves between my fingers, smoothing the creases over my knuckles. A whiff of gun smoke and the breeze settles me. I'm in familiar territory now and my confidence restores. This assessment is also a chance to show my uncle I can look after myself. He'll have to relax his security measures after I graduate anyway. He won't be responsible for me once I turn 18 and I'm only 3 months shy of that. If he remembers my birthday, that is. We've never celebrated it. Is my uncle here? I've rarely seen him since relocating to base. Darius shakes his head. He has a video feed of the assessment directed to his office. Would it kill my uncle to come and watch? I glance at the cameras around the range, hoping to convey my disappointment at his failure to show the family support I ache for. Instead, I see 2 of Marrick's team members, Red Bluff's Kelly Olsen and Lakeport Military Training Academy transfer, Jaclyn Crusoe. They stand near the large screen televising the sharpshooting rounds for the spectators. I don't see Marrick or Reese Matthews, the team's logistical analyst, another transfer from Lakeport. Reese never comes to base. I don't know why. Marrick goes everywhere with his team. He'll be here somewhere. On the armament bench, an M1911 pistol lies among a selection of guns. Marrick scored 40 out of 40 targets using this model. He's also the only person in TSP history to achieve a perfect score on a Sergeant K's course. If I match Marrick's achievement, he'll have to notice me. Eager to start, I turn my attention to Darius. Any advice? He pulls off his sunglasses. This course is designed to fail you. You'll only get 1 shot at it, so make every target count. Use your speed, trust your instincts, find your zone and stay there until the last buzzer sounds. Speed and instinct are my best skills, but the only time I've tested them is during my private training sessions with Darius. What if I didn't hone them enough to get me through this course? Hayes approaches, clipboard in hand. Wilson, Sarah, you're up next. Darius claps his hand on my shoulder. Remember, 1 bullet per target. Replacing his sunglasses, he strides back across the field. 1 bullet per target is half the challenge. If I miss and shoot twice, I could fail by running short of bullets. An uncomfortable fluttering starts in my stomach, but I don't know why I'm worried. I'm at my peak and ready to tackle this course. Darius will have made sure of that. It's my mother's memory. It lingers in the back of my mind, niggling for attention. Why today? Determined to block it out, I collect my gear from Hayes, the Sig Sauer P226, my favourite weapon, the allocated number of magazines, safety vest, helmet and gun belt. As I load the Sig and slot the extra magazines into my belt pouches, the buzzer sounds, ending Orsini's round. The video screen faces away from me, but the murmur from the crowd suggests Orsini's score isn't high. I search for Darius. He stands next to Kelly and holds up 3 fingers, then 2, to show Orsini scored 32 out of 40 targets. With my accuracy, I'll easily beat him. But while a score of 33 will win me the assessment and the top graduate title, it won't impress Marrick. Cassini strides from the course, a scowl etched into his square face, sweat pouring from his thick black hair. Seeing me, he smirks and heads in my direction. A smart cadet would move closer to Hayes, who barks reset target instructions to the ground crew through his radio. But I stay put, anger flaring at Cassini's attack on Nixon. Cassini bangs his shoulder against mine and dumps his gun on the armament bench and strips off the belt and vest. I'm surprised to see you here, Wilson, he says. Word around base is you are hiding in your barracks, afraid of the competition. His cocky attitude is as annoying as his intimidation tactics. There's no competition with Nixon and Boyd out. None left that I can see either. He looks across the field at Darius. Don't blame yourself. You showed potential yesterday. The Kingsley's training methods are outdated. Time he retired, if you ask me. If we weren't near an instructor, I'd shove my fist down Gorsini's throat for his dig at Darius. Nobody's asking you, so why don't you put your pop gun away and watch how it's done from the playpen? Funny, Wilson. Let's say you and I meet afterward. I'll help you pick your bullets out of the clip. They'll make great souvenirs. You can share them with Boyd and Nixon. His taunt at my aim is easy to ignore, but Boyd and Nixon deserve a better keepsake than a spent bullet. Raising my cig, I tap my finger on the trigger, giving Cassini a lesson in speed and accuracy. The second part of the sharpshooting challenge would be an ideal gift. Darius appears in my peripheral and drives his voice into my head with a pointed stare. Focus, Wilson. Don't waste energy on Gorsini. To beat him, beat the course. I turn away, determined to wipe the smile off Gorsini's face with a winning round. He leers at me. Funny how you moved into the lead. Weren't you in 10th place at the start of assessment week? I'd say bring your best to beat me, but I guess your uncle has that covered. His comment strikes a nerve. What if other people think my current position is because of my uncle? Hating the inference, I raise my stick again, all while glaring a hole through his head. Gorsini's expression darkens. Watch it out there, Wilson. You know how this course is. Accidents happen all the time. Not everything's recorded. Is he planning something worse than a broken hand? Only the target zones are televised, not the areas in between. Tired of his tactics, my temper snaps. Then you'd better make sure you don't stand in any of the black zones, or I might accidentally mistake you for a target. Cassini grins. Did you just threaten me, Wilson? He speaks loudly enough for Hayes to hear. He lowers his radio and crosses to us. You've had your chance, Cassini, he says, stepping between us. Get your butt off my course. He turns to me. I don't care who your uncle is. I won't tolerate threats of any kind. First and final warning, Wilson. Take your position. You start in 3 minutes. I jerk my cig down, furious with myself for falling for Cassini's baiting. To cop a warning right before my round is bad. One more step out of line, intentional or otherwise, will see me booted from the program. The learning Hayes thinks I believe I'm above reprimand because of my uncle is gut-wrenching. How many other instructors share his view? Fuming, I walk to the start of the course. With so little time to regain focus, I hold Darius's voice in my head. It's not enough. We're trained to fight enemies, but they're not all on the streets. One is here at Red Bluff, and it sits like a chip on my shoulder. The only way I'll remove it is to match Marek's score with an unforgettable performance to prove beyond a doubt my skills result from hard training, not favouritism. Otherwise, I'll always be the privileged niece of a lieutenant.
Let's meet again. Where magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.